Hello, Booktube. As my prefatory throat clearing for this live stream, which unfortunately has to be short, I thought I would ask once again that perennial question. It was on my mind today because of all the Booktube that I was watching, all the videos that I was watching from first thing in the morning until this afternoon, with all the various ways and reasons that I watch. Some Booktubers now are personal friends. They've been here to Hyde Cottage. Or I've corresponded with them and voxered with them to such an extent that it doesn't feel anymore like I'm watching a stranger. So there, it's just a collegiate matter of keeping up with what you're thinking, what's going on in your life, how you're feeling, that sort of thing. Two Donegal housewives over the back fence. Uh, Other booktubers are far more removed from the process, I think intentionally on their own part. So what they're doing is basically a presentation, a show. I don't have any categorical objection to that. It's not how I do things, but I don't have any longer any categorical objection to that, especially since I have 90 different kinds of ad blockers all over the place on everything that I do. So I don't watch ads anymore. I think that was increasing my subliminal irritation a lot more than I thought. But there's no personal connection there. There'd be no point in, for instance, me leaving a comment on those channels because they don't read their comments, don't respond to them at all. The only comments that might get a response would be a comment from an old friend or a business partner, but not from a viewer. And then there's, between the personal friends and the people who are in this as a business, there's the vast middle of people that I only know through Booktube. And some of them don't like me and would not respond to a comment of mine, even if there were 10 comments on a video and they respond to 9 others, so that it's glaringly obvious to anyone that they are singling out my comment to ignore. Some of them don't have any feelings about me one way or the other, and they do make fairly personal videos regularly, once in a while. For some reason, I am always interested, no matter what end of the spectrum, no matter where on the spectrum the Booktube video falls. And the reason it was on my mind is because this morning I was in downtown Boston. And one of the things I did in downtown Boston was make a quick little flying visit to a certain little cubbyhole in the State House, adjacent to the State House, because the State House is not actually open at the moment. But there are all sorts of overspill places that are open. And I wanted to go to one of those overspill places and poke fun and poke my head in and say hi to people. And one of the conversations resulted from that out on the sidewalk, because it was a beautiful morning, was about Booktube, where an old friend of mine who does not understand to this day why I don't work at the State House still brings it up. I tell him I'm as old as dirt. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts actually does not hire people as old as I am. It wouldn't matter if I applied right now. But Booktube came up again between us. It sometimes does. And once again, he asked his usual questions. He asks these questions even though he doesn't bother to investigate their answers at all. I think he just likes expressing bafflement, because that's what he did. He expressed bafflement about, so it's a part of YouTube where people talk about books. Well, okay, but it's not conversation because they're making a video and then uploading it. They don't know you're listening. I said, well, you can leave a comment. And he said, well, yeah, but that's paperwork. It's not a conversation. And why would you want to listen to it anyway? Why would you want to listen to well, keep in mind, this was his questions, not mine. He said, why would you want to listen to what some 22-year-old thinks of the Midnight Library? And I knew exactly where that bafflement came from. I don't need to intuit it because he says it to me all the time, which is that you have plenty of people to talk about books with. And what he means, the word that he's putting silently in that sentence, is real books with, or even real people. He knows I don't agree with that, so he doesn't push it. But that note of bafflement comes up a lot when I talk about Booktube with people that I know, almost all of whom are book people. It's like I've been saying for years on this channel, the standard response to the Booktube newbie question of why did you start this channel is I don't have anybody in my real life to talk about books with. And that definitely isn't true for me. I'm getting something else from Booktube. And I guess my old friend and a bunch of other people want to know what it is. What am I getting out of Booktube? And that naturally since I'm a tussle-haired 20-something, that naturally made me wonder, what am I getting out of Booktube, man? What are we all doing here? And when I get a question like that in my mind, the immediate thing I want to do is simply grill all of you. Now, ideally, what I would like to do is do it in person. Since as I'm making this live stream, it is 7 o'clock on a Friday, which means that ideally this room should be full of people. There should be every chair in the place should be drafted into the service here, and everybody should be wandering around looking at the shelves and wandering off into corners or fussing over my little dog until finally it's time to order food. Everybody sit down, pass around the wine, and begin an evening of just endless, bottomless book talk. Talk about books and writing all night long until one by one the guests start to drop off. Now, a lot of people, thanks to the modern era, a lot of you would have gig ride services because you would be pickled by then. I wouldn't trust putting you on the subway. I certainly wouldn't trust you behind the wheel of a car. So I would trust pouring you into a car driven by a stranger to drive you off to your location. And one lucky person would be consigned to the David Murphy Memorial Cot here. And we could talk about this subject of Booktube and all the different kinds of Booktube here in person. But since I can't do that, I thought I would ask the question here. An old question, an oldie but a goodie, which is, what is Booktube to you? What is Booktube to you? What do you get out of it? Are there multiple? There must be multiple reasons why you watch. Because there are multiple, you have multiple different kinds of connection with different channels. Pick a hugely successful Booktube channel. I won't name any names. Just pick a hugely successful Booktube channel. Somebody with over 200,000 subscribers. If you're watching that channel, well, it's all well lit, and there are fairy lights, and there's editing, and the editing's done by someone who isn't the Booktuber. And it's all professional, it's all paid for, and they've got channel memberships and subscription ratios and merch and whatnot. And you might be interested in the content of what they're doing, but you absolutely are under no illusion that you're making any kind of personal connection. I know the idea of a personal connection is a little strained. The whole idea of a parasocial relationship is a little strained. But with a lot of other Booktube channels, a lot of the ones that I confess I like the most, and I'm hoping this channel is, you do feel like there's a personal connection. You do feel like you're just watching a person making a video. And yes, they made the video however long ago. And yes, they're not there with you while you watch it. But you don't get the impression that you're watching a show or a persona. That's the bulk of the kind of Booktube that I watch. I keep my an oar in the water of the big, slick professional channels, even though I don't quite know why. They mostly annoy me. So I don't quite know why I do. I guess I just want to feel informed, maybe, or some of them get galley copies. I want to know what's going on there. I very seldom see anything that really nags at me, but I will sometimes watch them. But by far the watching that I watch the most are people, some of whom I don't know yet, some of whom I feel like I know because I watch them whenever they make a video, and some of whom I actually do know. And there's a little bleed through for all of those categories. If there's a brand new channel, for instance, 40 subscribers, 70 subscribers, 100 subscribers, something like that, and maybe the Booktuber is young, really young. We have plenty of really young Booktubers. Sometimes I will watch their channel, and my rule is that if I click on your video, I hit like. I don't wait for you to say everything that I like. The like button is not for me to agree with you. It's for me to signal to you that I appreciate that you made this video, and maybe to signal to the YouTube algorithm that I like videos like this, even if I don't know the actual specific content. So I'll automatically like a video like that from someone who, let's say, has 100 subscribers and is maybe a little uncomfortable on camera and maybe a little young. But I often will stop myself from leaving a comment on a channel like that. Sometimes I forget and I don't stop myself, but most of the time I will stop myself because I remember at the last second the weird logistics of the fact that I don't have 100 subscribers and that it might weird them out. Or maybe they don't like me. Maybe they've heard all sorts of negative things about me and don't want to comment from me. I, I have to think about calculus like that, but I'm always happy to see these videos, even in the slightly balkanized community that we have. I mean, there are whole sections of what I would consider to be genuine, authentic booktube that I don't watch for personal reasons. They don't those sections don't want anything to do with me, and I happen to know it, so I don't watch those whole communities. But that still leaves me with lots and lots and lots of channels, and I wonder if you do too. Does it leave you with that, and what do you think of it when you turn on booktube? Do you do it every day, first of all? But if you, when you turn on booktube, what is the feeling that you're getting? Do you feel like you're tuning in on Friends, or a kind of amateur AM radio community theater TV? And when you regardless of how you think of it, what you think it is, what are your priorities? What are your objectives? Are you looking to see books? Just that's it. Ooh, I didn't know that book existed. Ooh, I didn't know that book existed. Like who was it that I was watching? Just the other day, just yesterday, I was watching a video. Oh my God, who was it? Uh, oh, I'm not going to remember. Isn't that terrible? I'll remember later on, or one of you can remind me. A smaller channel did a video about new books that he bought, and one of them he bought because of me. He bought The Fate of the Phoenix and The Price of the Phoenix, Star Trek novels, because he knew that The Price of the Phoenix is my favorite Star Trek book. And when he held up his UK, I think it was a pan paperback of The Price of the Phoenix, it was the weirdest cover I've ever seen. I'd never heard of that cover before. It had nothing to do with the story. It was just a weird fantasy style cover about with an alien creature and a scimitar on the cover. And I had never seen that before. Now, is that the sort of thing that you watch BookTube for? Because you're going to see all sorts of books that you have not seen before, maybe hear about all sorts of books that you're not going to hear about before. I wonder sometimes if that is a slight difference on this channel. There are a lot of channels out there where the person will hold up one book after another in, let's say, a book haul, but they don't know anything about the book. They got it because the cover intrigued them, or because they know they like something else by the author, but they're just showing it to you. They're not actually talking about it. They don't have any history with it. And that tends not to be true with me. So maybe that's an appeal here. I don't know. I know this whole question of how do you booktube abuts very closely on a question that I have taught myself not to ask, because I have never had very many satisfactory answers, which is why anybody watches this channel. I'm trying not to ask that question here. I'm coming close, but I'm really asking, why do you watch the channels that you watch? Maybe that aren't this channel. And how much of it do you do? And also, not to get too Irish on you, but how much would you miss it if it were gone tomorrow? If this aspect of YouTube were just shuttered tomorrow, how much would you miss it? But anyway, that's my opening throat clearing. It's about BookTube. How do you BookTube? And I've been looking. I see there's a chat, so we'll go to the chat and we will see what you have to respond to, and anything else that you want to talk about. Of course, our perennial subject is the racist, sexist, fascist, lying moron who's currently the Republican standard bearer. The latest piece of news from him is him crapping all over military veterans, Medal of Honor winners. Not going to matter to his cult. They have veterans in their family. All of his cult have veterans in their family. And if he told them, spit on them, they would. If he told them, sneer at their service, they would. So it's not going to matter to his cult. I heard a commentator on MSNBC. I had a commentator on CNN, and I heard Keith Olbermann. All three of them say this ought to exile this figure, not only from Republican politics, but from American politics, and not only from American politics, but from American society. This guy shouldn't be welcome in restaurants anymore. The three different people who I'm pretty sure were recording at the same time, so they weren't colluding with each other. Naturally, that might swerve us, but let's see what's on the chat's mind. So One View Cornwall says, yippee. Nietzsche and Wig is here. What has helped you get review copies in the mail from publishers? I want to start doing that and save myself the money. What on earth? Is that question for me? Well, I'll answer it as if it were. You absolutely should not get review copies in the mail to save yourself money from buying a book. If that should not even be remotely connected with your reason for doing it. Your reason for requesting a review copy is to review it, is to review the book. Um, so I'm not sure about the premise of the question. What's helped me get reviews is that I've been doing this forever. I've reviewed in all kinds of journals. I have a rather sizable readership. It's not as big as the big superstars in the reviewing world, but I have a loyal, sizable readership that has only been augmented by YouTube. So if I request a review copy, the publicist, well, in addition to the fact that most of the publicists know me already, and they've known me for a long, long time. So, but even if they didn't, they will know that it's worth the price of the stamp for them to send me an advance copy of a book, because not only do I have a reading audience, which has increased now that I have revived my literary blog, Steve Reads, but I also have YouTube, but also a sizable audience, not as big as really big channels, but still 10 times bigger than I ever thought I'd get. So that's what helps me to get review copies, but I don't do it to save money, and you absolutely shouldn't either. Anyway, to reader it may concern, I'm actually here on time for once, and then some sort of cartoon. Yes, to reader it may concern. I've been I saw a comment of yours on a video today that mystified me. A comment implying that we maybe shouldn't mouth off at great length about every single book that we encounter. What was that supposed to mean? It felt rather pointed. Sarah is here. Sarah of the Bookish Knitter. Hello, everyone. Are you actually tuning in from the hospital? Well, of course you are, because they don't let you out of the hospital. Sorry, I'm not making it sound like a psych ward, but they don't let you go. So where are you watching this? I thought your room had a roommate. Tolstoy 111 says, isn't Waz Scoop a hoot? Yes, it is. Nietzsche and Wig says, using sub-vocalizing more to get through these books I have to teach that I'm not really that interested in, because I need to get them out of the way. It works, folks, especially with YA novels of 300 pages that can be read in one day. Again, I'm not following you here, because of course sub-vocalizing works. Nobody denies that. It slows you down, but it does work. Maximus Stedish, the Demon Mama allegations are getting intense, Steve. Yes, that whole drama is just, it's spinning off little antecedent galaxies of its own. It's just really, really weird. As far as I know, unless you're talking about stuff that is too recent for me, as far as I know, Demon Mama has not actually squarely addressed the central allegation herself. And the ruminations, the talk with Fact Check Girl and West Side Tyler and President Sunday is that she is going to scrub all mentions that incriminate her in her messages and in her chats and whatnot. It's kind of odd that all of the people involved are assuming that that the irresponsibility of West Side Tyler's expose is that it gives her time to do that. All of these people are just assuming that she is unethical, because the scrubbing of those messages, the scrubbing of evidence, would be unethical on its own. But maybe you're talking about something more recent. James Amix. Hey, Steve, we finally read Killer Angels for our book club. Everyone loved it. We had a great 2.5-hour discussion. I was not involved. I was not invited. What's up with that? We have Skype. We have Zoom. We have StreamYard. Why was I not part of this? Anyway, Leo Picara says, do you put comments in those fantasy booktubers channels you want to be friends with? I used to, but I don't anymore. What would be the point? What would be the point in going to, you name it, maybe not Jimmy Nuts, but you name anything else, anybody else, any of them. Well, actually not the Brothers Gwyn either, because sometimes they will, I haven't made a comment on their video in a while, but sometimes they will at least acknowledge that the comment is there. But other channels, other of those fantasy channels, they are the example that I'm talking about, where they'll have 20 comments. They'll like and respond to each one except for mine right there in the middle that they've just conspicuously ignored. So I don't do it anymore. I mean, I know that I'm rather dim, but I don't need a house to fall on me. I still watch their videos and like their videos, but I don't interact at all, because they don't want to interact with me. James is back. Yours is the only channel I watch. I watch every day because I view you as a daily friend, teacher, and mentor. Good Lord. I'm the only booktube channel you watch? Good Lord. We got an almost hour-long Brattle Hall today. It could easily have been twice as long. If I had had a young beast of burden with me, some young Boston undergraduate must watch this channel. If I'd had a pair of shoulders with me, I would have got twice as many books. And they could bring them back here. They could lug them back here, and in payment, I would feed them lunch and I would let them pet Frida. that ought to be a square deal. I ought to canvass for a college undergraduate in the coming semester. But that's awful nice of you. Thank you so much. Gola says, I like the discussion in the comment section. So you look at comment sections on Booktube channels? They can be a little scanty sometimes. But you do that? Ingrid Fitz. I don't watch any Booktubers that have 200,000 subscribers. That's too many sponsors and commercials, and they usually have a weird ASMR voice. You have noticed that about the voice? Yeah, they act very much like, Maury's in the sound booth, and they've been doing this 1,000 years, kid. Look, when you get in this business here, all right, the green light's on. Hey, how's it going? But that isn't how they sound in real life. It is rather off-putting. I was speaking of Maury in the sound booth. I don't know how many people are watching this video after the fact, but I should apologize. There is no CPL Radio Books of the Week today. There was some sort of audio problem with a piece of equipment in the booth. So I did exactly what you'd expect. I resoundingly fired my producer. And I am on WhatsApp and Fiverr trying to find a new producer. I'm sure I will succeed. Let's see here. Medium John Silver. Booktube for me is comfort viewing, and not just when watching Gina stand here. She is kind of synonymous with comfort viewing, isn't she? Ingrid Fitz says, I don't watch any Booktube. You skipped it. I skipped a comment. Michael Clark says, I mainly watch this channel for your try-on hauls and home decor tips. Book Songs All the Magic is here. Good Lord, I'm pulling in some fantasy or some Booktubers. Booktube is so many things, a way to talk about books, a way to think about your own reading, expanding your reading, evaluating and appreciating your reading, and making friends. I agree completely. I'm kind of wondering what the parameters are of what channels provide those things. Do you watch huge impersonal channels, or is it mostly people that you might talk to on the street or at the bus stop? Ethereal Fantasy says, for most people, they watch Booktubers out of loneliness. It's fake companionship. For me, it's partly that, and because I want to see what they think about books I love or hate. That's rather grim. Well, it's not fake companionship here. I hope you'll at least say that. Nick Piccarilli says, Booktube is one of the only genres of YouTube where I stay away from bigger channels for the reasons you mentioned. I wonder how many people. It doesn't. The channels don't have to have the subscriber count that I was talking about, but you know what I mean. The channels that are all fake and polished. They don't exist for any reason of any kind of personal motivation. They're in this for the money. Okay, Tolstoy 111 immediately segueing from in this for the money. Do you regard Badger and McAvoy as an impersonal monolith channel? He responds to comments quite often. If you like his channel, fine. Absolutely fine. I view him definitely as not only impersonal, but largely a grifter. Gina Standard Books is here. Hi, Steve. Two readers may concern is back. The purpose of Booktube for me is hard to answer. It feels like an accumulation of reasons. I'm pretty sure my intro to Booktube was your channel 7-ish years ago. I watched initially for book recs. Good Lord. 7 years of Steve. Oh my. Book Songs and Other Magic is back. I have discovered so many books and authors through Booktube, and apparently helped with a few of my viewers sometimes too. I don't doubt it. Rasmus says, a large part of my watching of Booktube is to find suggestions. Like most people, I don't know many people who read, and who do read either exclusively YA or self-help. Right. So when you're watching a Booktube channel, Booktube will hold up something. It doesn't have to be something famous. It doesn't have to be something that you know. But maybe they hold up a book and you think, oh, that's exactly what I want. Then what do? Straight away to the secondhand market to find a copy? Sid says, I finished The Tale of Genji yesterday, and while I honestly can't figure it out if I loved it or not, it worked its magic enough on me that I've already started to read through a different translation. Genji really helps to read more than one translation. It really does. And I don't blame you for wondering if it works on you. Thank you for finishing it. That's a long haul for a book you're not sure of. I would say concentrate on the beauty. and that might help you to get through the decidedly many parts that are not beautiful. Leo Percar says the biggest booktuber I watch is Arcade Books, who is Colombian. She got a little bit of a backlash because she criticized Romantasy and their respective book talker cheerleaders. She has 60,000 subscribers. Yes, that's another reason where I have to step warily with a lot of larger channels, is that they get involved in these dumb TikTok dramas, asking all sorts of questions that are not questions at all. Well, guys, I mean, we should talk about whether or not it's okay for an author to send a bomb to a critic. No, we shouldn't talk about anything like that. You're all acting like 13-year-olds. But and you will run into that in larger channels, because they inevitably shade towards being drama channels at that size. Two readers may concern. I think it still feels to me like excitement around discovering books. I love that feeling, but I've grown so used to certain booktubers now that I'm eager to hear from them. The chat jumped for the first time. But I remember it was Ethereal Fantasy that we were doing. Oh my God, there are a lot of comments here. How many people are there here? 19? I can't. Well, let's get back to business. There we go. Ethereal Fantasy. Steve, I have an off-topic question. My younger brother just turned 21 recently. What alternatives to Cormac McCarthy can I recommend and buy for him instead? I can't know that until I know what he likes about Cormac McCarthy. I don't make blanket recommendations. There are some books that almost certainly will work, but the key word there is almost. I mean, The Killer Angels will almost certainly work, but I'd rather know more about why is he reading Cormac McCarthy. If he's reading Cormac McCarthy for reasons that aren't literary at all, then no literary recommendation will help. If he's reading Cormac McCarthy for literary recommendations, well, I don't know what to do with people like that. I'm on Twitter just the other day. Who was it? Somebody posted just a random page from The Passenger by Cormac McCarthy, of just a ridiculous doggerel. It was like a parody. I know it wasn't written as a parody, but it was like a parody of stoned, horrible, stupid prose. Somebody screenshotted a page and posted it, and Christian Lorenzen is one of the most talented book critics in the world, just bowing down in genuflection of it. I was this close to leaving a comment saying, I honestly don't know what drugs you're all on. This is not interpretation. He posted a picture of the actual prose, and it's embarrassing. It's not just bad, it's embarrassing. So I would need to know what part of Cormac McCarthy your brother is liking. Gandhi says, my priority is to learn about new books, also to see opinions on recent reads. Unfortunately, like LinkedIn, booktubers are venturing off into political opinions and selfies. So it seems like it seems like a common thread here is that a lot of people are going to these videos for books recommendations. Even if the booktuber isn't recommending the book, they're at least showing it to you. That's interesting. So broadening the ambit of what you know is out there. That's interesting. Book songs are the magic. Book hauls are great for seeing what's out there, even if there's no content details. Quaint Curious Volumes is here. There are booktube channels with over 200K. I'll believe it when I see it. Jack Edwards has 1 million on 2 channels. He's 2 million subscribers. Gets invited to host literary galas. Gets invited to do anything at all. With those kind of numbers, it's amazing to me that he has not been put in charge of Stoddard and Houghton or something. And it will happen. It will absolutely happen. Two readers may concern, why watch your channel? There is literally no one else I can think of like you. That feels of value regardless of what you specifically discuss. I don't know what that means. Most of the people in my time on BookTube who've said there's no one like you have meant it as an insult. But keep in mind, I'm not asking that unanswerable question. I consider it like the nature of the Trinity is just an impenetrable mystery. Sarah is back. The reason I watch what and who I watch is because they and you are my friends. I love talking books. Almost every booktuber I watch is someone I actually converse with outside of videos. Okay, so for you, it's entirely personal. And oh boy, I know you're going through the valley right now, but I live for the day when you'll be back at Hyde Cottage. I live for the day when you will be able to just come back here and have free to scream at you. That would be wonderful. Rasmus says, I honestly don't know why Trump didn't get more backlash several years ago when he made fun of John McCain for being a POW. Yeah, I don't. I don't get it at all. All the illusions of this country and what it claims and always has claimed since World War II, what it has claimed to believe in. Don't be a sore loser. Don't cheat. Don't be unfaithful to your wife. Honor our troops. All of those things. They're not just Republican things. Those are American things. And this guy comes on, craps all over all of those things, and gets 170 million people to agree with him. And you're right, that's been true all this time, years, a decade almost. Medium John Silver, when I watch used book hauls, I like to see if I have one of those books. If so, I smile and leave a comment. I don't know how you're going to do today. Some of the books that I got today at the Brattle are fairly well known. Others maybe not. Nietzsche and Wig. Like you, I generally avoid getting books just for the aesthetics, but for my sins, I do have everyman copies of books I have read and loved purely for the aesthetics. Well, I can hardly blame you. They are pretty nice on the shelf, and also pretty well made. Leo Percara, I watch Booktube because I have literally nobody to talk to about books in real life. No one in my family or group of friends read anything. My brother read 3 books a year, but he hasn't much to say. 3 books a year is above average for America. Ingrid Fitz says, if Booktube went away, I would feel bad for several days, but then start reading more books I've accumulated because watching so much. Tolstoy 111, speaking of verbal hijinks, do you like anything by Alain Robbe-Grillet? No. You surely are not surprised by that. He is all gimmick. He's all hat and no cattle. Nick Piccirilli, we watch you for all the books you've read, and MKV for all the books he might read by 2050. Can you believe? Can you believe? And what was all with all that grandpa talk that he did when he was talking about taking his vacation and talking about all the books he was going to bring with him? He's never heard of an e-reader? What on earth? He's going to fill his suitcase with books like it was 1910? Gandhi says, it is absolutist opinions like Trumpers would spit on them that are particularly irritating. Okay, I'm not clear if you're talking about other people or if you're talking about me. Trumpist party members applauded him when he said what he said today. That I didn't imagine them applauding him. They did applaud him while he dragged the whole idea of a Medal of Honor through the mud. And it's not the first time he's done that, and they've applauded him every time. So that's not my imagination. I didn't imagine those reactions. Maybe that's what you're getting at. Hannah's Books is here. I watch for the people with personalities like that immediately make them feel like friends. I think that sense is partly personality, but also probably partly based on similar taste in books. So does the majority of the channels that you watch have similar taste in books? Is that why you're so often a no-show for my comic book videos? Is that true? So Sarah mostly watches people that she knows or would know in real life. Do you mostly watch channels where the tastes are the same? Nietzsche and Wig, Steve, I do generally want to review books. I just don't want to scam the publisher. Well, requesting a review copy from a publisher when you do not plan to review it would be scamming them. And they take a really dim view of that, and they have a long memory. So I wouldn't. The only reason I jumped up and down on it is that I wouldn't want the cost of books to enter into your mind at all, not even on the far perimeter. I know I joke about being a critic and never paying for books, but I earn my keep with the new books that I get. You absolutely should not be thinking about price. You have libraries for that. You should be thinking about reviewing instead. For open letters. Choco says hi to me and Frida. The bean is over there. For some reason, she's, hi, baby. Your fans want to see you. Do you want to come over here? Huh? No? No? What are you doing? You're just staring at the mess you've made. That was a well-made chair until you made a mess. Oh, there you go. She had a very active walk just a couple of hours ago. She screamed at everybody to pet her. Everybody had to stop and pet her. I felt sorry for there was a work crew working on the extension of a house up the hill, and I felt sorry for them because they were in the zone. They were finishing up their workday, and she made them stop. she made them stop. Ethereal Fantasy says, for other booktubers, I watch them for background noise, and sometimes their thoughts on books I know. Some, like Gavin Reads It All, are so creative. Sometimes I watch for motivation to read. Oh, that's an interesting one. Motivation to read. That's fascinating. Nietzsche and Wig says, I watch Booktube because I have no one in my life to discuss book with or almost anything with. Okay, so it does somehow form a kind of conversation, even though it's not in real time. Ethereal Fantasy says, I watch your videos because you have a different perspective to young booktubers because they follow trends. Some of them do. Yeah, it's a little bit disappointing. I don't follow trends. Trends follow me. Stephen Brushley's here. I think I remember reading in the Paris Review that Faulkner didn't like to talk shop. Must have been a curmudgeon. Probably would have made a lousy booktuber. Yeah, well, brittle alcoholic racists tend to be curmudgeons. Sarah is back. No, I don't get I don't get a day pass. I have a headphone in so I can hear, so no one can hear what I'm listening to. No, you don't get a day pass. No, you don't get to do that. I often wonder if sometimes I often wonder if it wouldn't be good for you. I know hospitals like to forestall that idea. They actually put a shunt in you in a lot of long-term patients. It's to make procedures easier, but it also completely obliterates the idea that you might leave because they need to remove that before you can leave. And I often think that's counterproductive. I think that a lot of patients who are in for long term would benefit a lot from going to a park on the other side of town once in a while. Ethereal Fantasy says, I like learning about things I wouldn't normally think of or know about because I'm not a white man and way younger, and your channel is great for that. You have a lot of knowledge and interesting takes. Oh, we're not talking about my channel, though, because I don't understand it. I don't think I ever will. Jesse Lynch says, I would fuss over your little dog for sure. And Frida would demand it until she doesn't want anymore. She would demand that you fuss over her, and then once she's had enough, she'll just leave. She'll just walk off. Gandhi says, I have been a fan of Seth Meyers' A Closer Look segments. However, the refusal to look at glaring issues with the Democratic Party / proposals is off-putting and disappointing. Oh, I haven't watched A Closer Look in so long. What he took actually, I know when it was. He took a long break because of the writer's strike, and I just completely fell out of the habit of doing it. I've never gone back. So I don't exactly know what you're talking about. I should probably look and see. Mike C says, Steve, who are your favorite booktubers? Well, that's part of what I'm trying to say, is that it's hard for me to pin that down. It would depend on favorite for what. I mean, my old friend at the State House this morning, he had a kind of a point. Again, this is awful touchy. I know that I'm among friends here, but this is awful touchy. But he had a kind of a point in that I'm almost never going to be watching a booktuber in order to learn about books. I know that sounds awful, but I think you know what I mean. That's almost never going to happen. Different editions of books, sure, a weird cover on The Price of the Phoenix, but never. I watch, in other words, my favorite booktubers, I watch them for all kinds of reasons. Some I watch because they're very, very young. Most booktubers are at least 40 years younger than I am. So some I watch, they're very, very young. So I want to know what they think if they're encountering Cloud Atlas or Brandon Sanderson's Way of Kings or something like that. I want to know what they think. It's just of interest to me. That's all. I'm just nosy when it comes to readers. And then others, well, they're more practiced readers than that. They might be a little bit older, although some young booktubers are really good at that. They're practiced readers, more experienced readers, and there I'm going to be interested in their journey. And then there are some that are friends that are just, I feel either they actually are friends, either from real life encounters or from Voxer and email, or they feel that way. So I have all kinds of favorites, is what I'm trying to say. Nietzsche and Wig says, aside from you, I watch Joe Spivey, Katie from Books and Things, Carolyn Marie Reads, Benjamin McAvoy, and Tristan and the Classics occasionally. Okay, what an interesting combo there. Mark says, Steve's channel is all the booktube I watch. Who else could entertain my infatuation with Katharine Hepburn and Theodore Roosevelt? No other parasocial relationship could meet my needs so well. To readers that may concern, Steve, what makes for a great channel in your view? Well, only in my view. I want it to be genuine. I don't want to feel like I'm part of your business plan. I don't want to feel like you're fishing for money. And you would have to go a long way to make me feel that, because like I said, I have loaded my whole YouTube experience with ad blockers of all kinds, of every single kind. I don't get ads unless you are whore enough to read an ad in the middle of a video. And the reason why some sponsors will do that is because they know that can't be skipped. And they know people want to skip. People left television and came to YouTube because of commercials. Uh, if you're not doing that, then authenticity is one of the things that I want. I know when I say this all the time, it always feels weird, but I hate excessive unprofessionality. I know I'm no one to talk. I'm doing a webcam. I usually have terrible audio, but I mean excessive, where you're dropping things, where you're leaving the camera for a minute at a time because there's something down the hall you just thought about. When you're belching repeatedly, loudly belching, and just not thinking anything of it. Just stuff like that. But you're asking what makes a great channel, not what makes a bad one. I like authenticity. If I feel like I'm like the person who's simply talking, that's wonderful. Quaint and Curious Volumes. I partly want to see books I didn't know about, and mostly to see what my imaginary booktube friends have to say about books I already know about. Okay, that seems to cover my spectrum. Jesse Lynch says, Steve, you are my favorite, and also that guy that likes Werewolf by Night. I actually did not know about Booktube, I assume you mean, and stumbled on you by accident 4 months ago when looking at comic book videos. Wow, I wouldn't think that that my comic book videos would pull anybody in. I could do one a day. I love talking about comics. And Hannah has often urged me to do one comic book video a day. Nietzsche and Wig says, Joe Spivey's satire booktube is hilarious. Mm-hmm. Ayokays, Yo Steve. Steve Bronstein says, do you ever worry about whether or not you may have inadvertently hurt a real life friend's feelings or said something hurtful or inappropriate? Well, I worry that I would hurt a friend's feelings, certainly. I don't say anything inappropriate on this channel. And as far as I'm concerned, keep in mind, I'm from the 20th century, not the 21st century. Words aren't hurtful. Intents are hurtful. So I don't so much worry about the second part. Of course, I would worry about inadvertently hurting a real life friend's feelings. I would like to think that by this point in the game, anybody that's watching my channel that actually considers me a friend knows perfectly well that I have not the slightest bit of malice anywhere. And so if they take hurt, they must know that it is, in fact, inadvertent. I'd like to think that's true. Certainly anybody who's been to visit here, I would like to think, okay, if you say, I play rough, I'm the first person to acknowledge that, but there is no malice anywhere. So I'd like to hope not. Nietzsche and Wig says, how long have you lived at Hyde Cottage and how easy was it to purchase? Asking as a penniless 25-year-old keen to own my own home one day. Oh, man, that must be so bitter to you, to know how heavily the deck is stacked against you ever owning a home. Oh, that must be awful. Oh, I sympathize. But I don't actually own Hyde Cottage. My surly houseboy and I have been here for a long time, but we oversee the property, but I don't own it. Owning home at my age, I think that would be a mistake. Damien P says, I don't watch many booktube channels. I'm fairly new to yours. I enjoy hearing you speak on books and various topics. I like your tastes are so varied, and I appreciate the lack of pretension. Well, I would say, first of all, welcome, but I would really like to think that nobody, including people who don't like me, would think that I am pretentious. I would really like to think that. I hate it more than anything. I would hate the idea that anyone thinks I am that. Although I've had people say it over the years. But this guy, he's old. I haven't actually watched any videos, but I've looked at the thumbnail and he looks old, so he must be pompous. Jesse Lynch says, typo, booktube, not book time. And I was intrigued by your talk of the Brattle, and I love books, and your channel is so delightful. Nietzsche Wig says, gonna out myself as a Benjamin McAvoy fan here. He was one of the first channels I found and liked him instantly. Well, there's no accounting for taste. No, you're free to like him, absolutely, but he doesn't ever strike you as phony? Good God. He doesn't ever strike you as phony? that incredibly pretentious theatrical voice that he assumes when he's talking about literature. I mean, he he might be a nice guy, and if you like his channel, that's fine. That kind of attitude, making a church out of books, I have hated since I got into books. I hate that attitude more than anything. If you make a church out of books, obviously you are going to be a priest, and there's going to be tithes, and that drives me nuts. That no matter how happy and smiling and charismatic that is inherently gatekeeping. But anyway, I'm glad that you like him. I should stress that. Tolstoy 111, there is nothing more depressing than a booktube channel that gets big and morphs into discussing interesting books to only talk about YA they're being paid to review. I've seen it happen. So have I. That exact thing I've seen happen. You're not, for those of you in the chat, Tolstoy 111 is not exaggerating. I've seen that exact thing happen, and it is really depressing. You reach a point where you realize it has happened, you realize it's never going to unhappen, and you just have to unsubscribe. I hate that. Just hate that. The chat jumped again. The chat jumped when I was expressing hatred. Don't expect me to stop with that, though. Let's see here. Oh, my God. Let's see here. Come on. I'll find it. Sorry about this. We will go back and we will find where we left off. There we go. Nietzsche and Wig. Have you ever been involved in a political campaign, even at the level of door knocking? Only once, a long time ago, and it was disastrous. It was absolutely disastrous. We were putting in lawn signs, and I got precious little work done, and I bet you can guess why. I bet you can guess why. What happens if Steve goes on somebody's property to put a lawn sign in with one companion, also from the campaign? Yeah, all the dogs within half a mile come running to converge on Steve, and he rolls around on the grass with them while they lick his face and bite his ears. And no sign making gets done. The other person has to do it all and then report you. Jesse Lynch says, Irish. I'm Irish, but I didn't know why a question would be Irish. Well, if I doom and gloom things up, that's probably a little excessively Irish. Colombian Thunder says, you're pretty much the only booktuber I watch. Good Lord, that note keeps coming up. Which is interesting because for the most part, our tastes are very different. I like McCarthy. Sorry. Well, for all I know, you're saying you like Mary McCarthy, as you well should. Nietzsche and Wig says, whilst Trotsky has Deutscher and Stalin has Kotkin, Lenin doesn't seem to have a definitive biographer. Okay, fun at parties, are we? Apropos of nothing. Mark says, also, whom would I go but Steve after rummaging through Project Gutenberg and finding a jewel like Nantucket Windows by Edwina Bobcock, which is what happened today. She's lovely and forgotten. Good Lord. Who would I go to, Steve? So, meaning you're going to wrap that up and send it to me? Is that what you mean by that? Nietzsche and Wig says, what in your view is the best Lenin biography? Oh, there we go. I knew it. I am not the person to ask about Lenin biographies at all. Sid says, speaking of Genji and beauty, it's been so fun to dive into the mind-boggling rabbit hole of Genji-inspired art. I know. Oh, my God. Frida, baby, what are you doing? Oh, my God. She's having some sort of bratish seizure over there. Oh, baby, what are you doing? Oh, my God. What are you doing over there? Who knows? She's keeping herself occupied. Yeah, the Genji-inspired art is unbelievable. It is endless. And, it always has been. There's 1,000 years of it. I had no idea about this aspect of its cultural heritage before, yeah. Colombian Thunder, but I find your perspective insightful and educational. I've discovered a lot of that I would have never sought out because of you and learned a lot. Well, isn't that nice? J. Scott Phillips says, am I late again? Have I missed anything good? You come into a Stevestream almost an hour in and you ask if you've missed anything good. Nice. No blob watch for you. Nietzsche and Wig says, buying new releases from bookstores instead of Amazon is worth it, I think. I'm trying to get store credit and get a discount at some point if I make consistent purchases. Most retail bookstores will have a frequent customer rewards program, and there's also the library. Street Medic says, in addition to you and Michael K. Vaughan, I mostly watch channels that focus on the great books like Great Books, Big Ideas, and The Cause, which focuses on the Harvard classics. Ugh. Tolstoy 111, I'll eventually read both Blood Meridian and Infinite Jest because I feel I have to. You don't have to. You don't have to. They are part of the culture / literary air we breathe, whether we like it or not. No, they aren't. No, they aren't. They're part of misogynist incel dude bro culture. They're not part of any other culture. You think a book is part of culture in the 21st century? No book is part of culture in the 20th century. In the 21st century, no one reads. They are not. That is simply incorrect. You don't need to read them. They are garbage. they are garbage. In the case of Infinite Jest, a huge amount of time waste for garbage. If you're curious, fine, but not for the reason that you say here. You do not need to read them for any cultural obligation. There is no cultural obligation. If you're curious, yes, but not as a chore. I can recommend you a lot of other books that you will really enjoy. Brian Constantine. I'm 60% book recommendations / ideas, 30% learning who put in the canon and who you would cut out, 10% bashing dude bros / Jordan Peterson / Cormac, etc. Dejan Wig says, I know you hate Mahler. Doesn't everybody? But I contend his Third Symphony is one of the best things to listen to in the summer, especially Bernstein's 1960s recording. Okay, so the Bernstein's 1960 recording. So you want to combine composer incomprehensibility with conductor tone deafness. Great. What a great combo you've got there. Although listening in summer, sure, provided you're underwater in the community pool. Ethereal Fantasy says, my younger brother wants to read Cormac McCarthy because a Midwestern musician. He likes references him, and he's interested in the mainstream portrayal of American masculinity. Cormac McCarthy is not the mainstream portrayal of American masculinity. And he's a terrible writer. It's a horrible waste of time. If your younger brother wants to do that because he's made a connection with another person, fine. But it's a waste of his time as a book. It doesn't sound like he wants to read it as a book, though. Street Medic says, I'm the only person here who's actually the GB and HC. And if you want to discuss them, you have to go online. I don't know what either one of those are. Jasper Antonelli says, I'm excited for J.D. Vance's platform bringing back 1850s nativism. Can you believe it? Every time the guy opens his mouth, literally every time he opens his mouth, it's actually become really funny. It won't be funny if he runs the country, but it's actually become really funny. Rasmus says, do you think there's any validity to the idea that Fitzgerald copied off his wife? Copied off, no. But there was a lot more bleed through than his people and his adherents and his agents and whatnot wanted people to know. Same thing with Hemingway and Martha Gellhorn. There was a lot more bleed through than people wanted. I think that Nancy Milcher's biography on that is just wonderful. Her book on Zelda is just wonderful for that, for really tracing that, and it's like 60 years old. But copying would imply that Fitzgerald had no talent of his own, and for a while he did. Nietzsche and Wig says, why do you dislike Leszek Kolakowski? I would have thought you would find him more interesting than other philosophers because of his commentary on political matters and his destruction of communism. I'm pretty sure it's the philosophy that I object to. The philosophy part, not his stances, just the way he does it. Jesse Lynch says, nice thing about you, Steve, is you interact with everyone on your channel. I try to, but I'm not asking for compliments about my channel because I don't know why anybody watches. I don't know why anybody watches a crapulent old man turn on a camera and talk nonstop all day long about books, especially books that let's be honest, you're not going to encounter them. Probably you're not going to do much in the way of reading them. I mean, is anybody going to read old Dennis Donahue essays except me? Not many. I would imagine not many of the people who watch my channel. I don't know. Anyway. Well, but I'm very glad. I do try to interact with everybody because to me this is a conversation. Tolstoy 111 says, speaking of Madame de Stael, we weren't. Which biography of her were you raving about? I don't recall. Mistress to an Age. Oh, what a book. Mistress to an Age is the name of it. I saw a copy today at the shop. I already have the copy that I want. It's amazingly good. Amazingly good. Quaint Curious Volumes. Do you know that Another One Bites the Dust is the only #1 hit song that starts with the word Steve? I didn't know that. Is that true? Either that it's the only number one song that starts with the word Steve, or that it starts with the word Steve. Is either one of those things true? Ethereal Fantasy says, if Booktube went away, my fear of missing out consumerism would go away and I would be more productive. Yeah, people, this seems the answer to what would happen if Booktube disappeared seems to be, gee, I wish it would. This is kind of weird. Sid says, going through Gore Vidal's United States for the first time, and I don't want to try some Role Grillet after this. I found myself laughing out loud while reading these essays. Thanks for the recommend. Now, when Vidal is on, he's on. At the Brattle this morning, there was a huge number of collected literary book chat, and there were a dozen volumes of Gore Vidal, at least a dozen of the little volumes that he used to come out with. I did not see a copy of An Homage to Daniel Shays, but I saw almost everything else, and it was kind of tempting to snap those up, but I thought somebody will want them more than I do. Tolstoy 111 says, Light in August is actually very sensitive regarding race issues. Randy Ray is here. Hello, everyone. So you say hi to everyone, but not to me. Nietzsche and Wig says, well, I went to the bookstore today and saw Douglas Murray being sold openly, and the store hasn't been canceled. This is heartening to see. Yeah, I know, unironically, it is heartening to see. I just wonder whether or not the employees are being controlled at the register, at the point of sale, as we used to call it, the POS, because I don't want them sneering or snickering or holding the thing like this, as I've seen employees do until I told them not to. So it's good that he's in the store, but I also don't want people shamed for buying his books. Sarah Palin is back. Not Sarah Palin. Oh my God, no. Sarah Palin. To be 100% honest, I have been told that if mentally it gets to be a lot, they will work with me to let me out for a day. But once I'm on the transplant list, I can't go far. Yeah. As my luck would have it, that's when the Newhart would come in when you're across town or in Boston. What's that on my phone? Oh my God. But I would think it's good that they give you the option. I get the impression that you're remarkably mentally resilient, so maybe you won't need the option. I understand why they'd be cautious. Randy Ray, Steve, can I make an off-topic announcement about my health? You should go right ahead. Everybody should know the good news. Hannah's Book says, I watch booktubers who talk about all sorts of books, but usually some of the books they love overlap with some of my type of books. That way I can easily imagine those books might fit for me. Those other books that I don't read, that is. Jack Walter says, I am retired now and am reading and rereading lots of classics. A lot of booktubers concentrate on contemporary literature, and I rarely discover new literature I enjoy. Matthew G says, I watch Booktube for a couple of people talking about some fairly niche authors, and for entertainment with no polish, no profit motive, etc. Mainstream entertainment now feels vapid and predatory. And Maximus Stedish agrees. Vapid and predatory is a great way to put it. And that's interesting, the duality that you draw there between the contrast between mainstream literature and what you get here, which I maintain is unprecedented and will make mainstream entertainment, especially mainstream commentary entertainment, feel kind of weird, kind of pointless. Or will it? I think once you get used to having any kind of parasocial relationship with the people who are likewise giving you what you want, when you go to some mainstream venue and you get what you want, but you don't get the parasocial relationship, I can't help but think that would feel much less. I don't know about all the rest of Booktube, but when you watch my channel, you know that you can email me, you can send me things, I can send you things, you can come over here and fuss with my dog. That's different. So I might be reading Pride and Prejudice or talking about some subject, but there's a connection there that isn't present when you watch George Stephanopoulos. I don't know. I find it fascinating, just fascinating. Nietzsche and Wig says, you are my favorite Booktube channel right now. What's that mean, right now? What's that mean? Steve Bronstein says, Benjamin McAvoy watches only one booktuber, Benjamin McAvoy. I don't know him, and I don't want to rain on anybody's parade if they like him, but I strongly get that impression. He says it makes for the best, most delicious education where the host sucks the marrow out of each book he reviews. Right, and where he does the educating, and you are the student. And Nietzsche and Wig says, I like his soothing voice, blue eyes, and erudite discussion of each book. Okay, he has blue eyes. Andy Guy says, Steve, have you heard of the new Ali Abbasi film, The Apprentice, about Trump's relationship with Roy Cohn? Oh, I think I did hear about this. Yes. Do you think a good movie can be made about Michael Cohen? I have heard about The Apprentice, but I don't think I even have a screener for it. And I don't think a good movie could be made about Michael Cohen. No, not at all. Nietzsche and Wig says, best Frank Sinatra biography. Boy, I'm not a good one for that either. You shouldn't want to hear about Roman emperors. J. Scott Phillips, I watch Booktube because I feel like people that read are like extended family and are usually able to talk about almost anything, either out of personal knowledge or genuine curiosity. Extended family. I kind of like that. Randy Ray, I missed the beginning, but I gather that we're talking about who we like to watch on Booktube and also why we watch Booktube. What role does Booktube play in your life? I'm pretty devoted to Steve, Criminali, Michael K. Vaughan, Hannah, et al. And isn't it interesting that we all know who you mean by et al.? Nietzsche and Wig says, Joe Spivey's channel led me to your channel, and you have now monopolized several hours of my life. Thanks, Steve. And be careful of the Steve rabbit hole. It's not small. It's actually gigantic. Be careful of it. There's always going to be another video. If you watch 24 hours a day for a solid week, you wouldn't get through them all. And I keep doing it. I did 5 today. I'll probably do 5 tomorrow. Michael Lombardo says, of course, I watch Booktube for fresh ideas to guide my future reading, but I do enjoy the random rant, like getting your high school teacher off on a tangent. Oh, and Blinkist. Yes, of course, let's not forget Blinkist. Quentin Curious Wallace is hailing Randy Ray, who is now in the chat. Nietzsche and Wig says, books are the only thing that keeps me sane and reconciles me to the fact that I will probably die alone. Don't you a little ray of sunshine. Everyone dies alone. Just a little hint there. Randy Ray says, The Way You Wear Your Hat is a great book about Frank Sinatra, although it falls short of being a biography. Well, I remember that. I don't think I ever read it. I'd go to you for a biography before I would me of Sinatra. Hannah's books. The big problem for me is that I am perpetually wildly behind on Booktube, even on the videos my IRL friends make. Poor time management? Is that what we're talking about? Andy Guy says, I just got a copy of James Mishra's book, Space. Did I make a good investment? You did. Yeah. Although Mishner fans will raise an eyebrow at the ending of Space, and so do I. But still, the rest of it, sure. Although if you got James Mishner's Space because you like the drama of NASA and early space exploration, don't miss. There's a science fiction novel called The Far Call by Gordon Dixon, famous for his Dorsai books. If you ever see a secondhand copy of that, don't miss that either. Mark says, adding to your point about unprofessionalism, my biggest pet peeve is people who eat during their videos. This is especially common in short form content. Nothing more obnoxious. I know I'm a stick in the mud, but I don't like it. I don't think that. I know some people have accused me of being hypocritical on the subject. I know I say these are conversations. They are, but they are also a production. They're both. They have to be, because you're not actually here. So it's not actually a conversation. There is an element of performance. I think you should keep it strictly under control. I think the element of performance should be as transparent as a pane of glass. It absolutely does not allow for eating or belching or picking your nose or leaving the camera or whatever. The chat jumped. All right, well, let's go back to bashing eating on camera. That's where we were last. Oh my God, look at all these comments. There we go. Jasper, the first Booktube channel I watched and loved was Mayberry Book Club. Nietzsche and Wig says, okay, I have to admit your impersonation of Benjamin McAvoy is funny. I'm like, oh God, I could go on forever. And it's not, believe it or not, it's not a Benjamin McAvoy impersonation. The key I'm trying to say is that I have known people like him far, far longer than his parents have been alive. Before they were born, I was dealing with people like him, acting the way he does about books, that these are transcendental, church-like experiences. And that by implication, I am the priest who will guide you through them, and The things I don't mention aren't worth that. They won't be that. They won't change your life. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing. That is designed. Anyway, sorry. Hannah's books. Church Out of Books sounds like the Brattle. Yeah, the Brattle was wonderful this morning. Pretty humid. And also, oddly, I made a lot of bad choices. I don't usually do that. They aren't bad choices. I had to winnow because I reached the limit of what I could carry. That's what bugged me. Quaint and Curious Farms. I miss Mayberry Book Club. Yes, I do too. Booktubers, go. Jack Walter. Benjamin McAvoy is just too didactic. He sees himself as a perpetual professor. I don't know if he would use the word professor, but there is definitely no parity between him and you. None at all. He is the teacher or the priest, and you are the supplicant in the rows. And that's it. You are not welcome up on stage at all. And I would like to think that no matter what you think about me, you don't think I think that. Even though, factually speaking, my knowledge of the literature that he's describing hugely eclipses his own. And by extension, it hugely eclipses all the knowledge of all the people who pay him to teach them. Even though that's true, I do not agree at all with that kind of gatekeeping. Not at all. But anyway, Dylan says, I think one of the best things about Steve's channel isn't just the lack of pretension, but the way he polices it in others, otherwise accepting, but expecting us not to be posers. Well, no, I don't. If you put on airs on my channel, I shouldn't pounce the way I do. It's just long time experience that I do that. I cannot stand that kind of pretension. But I shouldn't pounce I shouldn't pounce as readily as I do. Jack says, what happened to Mayberry? No idea. Quaint and Curious Volume says, Mayberry Book Club just hasn't posted in a while. I think he's fine. Good. Glad to hear it. He's great. Thanks. Tolstoy 111 says, speaking of the Crimean War, you are the segue king. Do you like Cry, the Beloved Country? No, not particularly. I know that's weird. Everybody I know who's read it likes it, but I don't particularly. Nietzsche and Wig says, one thing I like about your channel is you don't feel the need to be nice all the time, especially with bad books and toxic cultural figures, unlike the panderers and conformist YA lovers. Well, I don't know that. I appreciate that. But it stands to reason that if your viewers are now your paying customers, that you will buffer every opinion, almost every opinion, because you don't want to lose customers. You don't want to lose money. To readers, it may concern, not to stir controversy, but what do you think of channels like Leaf by Leaf or Better Than Food? Would you categorize them with Benjamin McAvoy? Best not to get me started on Better Than Food, but yes, I would, in the sense that there is no parity at all. They are the teachers. They will teach you, and you will shut the F up and listen. And if you don't like what they have to say, take off. You're a bad reader and maybe a bad person. But you should like what they have to say because I'm charging you enough for it. You better. It's the institutionalization of pedagogy as part of reading, instead of this fun thing that we're all doing that we can all learn from. It's not for me. And yes, the attitude, the vibe, as the kids say on all three of those channels, is identical in that regard. Anti-Guy says, Steve, did you see any footage of those leaked Project 2025 training videos? What was your impression? I did. I watched all the leaked footage. That who was it that did it? ProPublica? Democracy Now? I forget who did it, but they leaked a huge amount of footage, and I watched it all. And one of the reasons that I watched it all is not because of Donald Trump. It's because this stuff isn't going anywhere. There's a huge block of people who want this. They will always be there. They will always be at the elbow of small L liberal democracy with a game plan to turn this country into a fascist autocracy. That's exactly what those training videos are talking about. Police the opinions of your colleagues, not just at work, but at home. Are they on the right team? And here's the way you should report them if they're not. Sickening. And again, like I was mentioning with Trump's comments today about the Medal of Honor, it's sickening in a way that should change the lives of the people in those videos. It should change their lives. Their restaurant should no longer want their business. I'm sorry, you cannot make a recommendation for a reservation for 8. We don't want you to eat here. Their grocery store should say, I'm sorry, you can't have a membership card because we don't want you to shop here. We can't stop you from shopping here, but we don't want your business because you're an authoritarian. You want to turn this into a dictatorship and make us all slaves to the Trump family. We don't want we saw the videos. They speak for themselves and they are absolutely unconscionable. Those people, it should have an effect on their lives. It won't, but it should. J. Scott Phillips, I like all my favorite booktubers because they live in a shared universe. Lots of crossover between channels and occasional team-ups. Yeah. Yeah. I wish there could be more. Nietzsche and Wig says, what was your mother's favorite Mario Lanza song? When I Grow Too Old to Dream. Nietzsche and Wig says, I have discovered the Irish tenor Joseph Locke. Truly a magnificent voice. Another writer I will never read, Jordan Peterson. Can't stand the guy. Gina Standard Books is back. I just searched the web for The Price of the Phoenix to see the cover. Full PDF version popped up. I had no idea these existed. I think I can send it to my Kindle. You found the cover that I'm talking about, the weird UK cover with the creature, a cat-like creature on the cover. It has nothing to do with the book. Nothing at all to do with the book. Steve Bronstein says, what do you think of Sam and Emma from Majority Report? I find it hard to listen to Majority Report. I should, but I find it hard to listen to it for reasons that should not still be true. Why is Sam Cedar so bad at talking? He has a script. He has script writers. He has a prompt in front of him. Why is he worse at speaking coherent sentences without umming, awing, stopping, and starting than I am, off the top of my head, totally unprepared? Why is that? He makes a huge amount of money every month to do this. Why is he so bad at it? Why is he so bad at it? And that's just him. He's so bad at talking. Interrupts himself constantly, long, stuttering, dead points in a conversation. And when he's not doing that, he's talking over Emma. Rudely interrupting her, cutting her off. I don't know if their community has ever told him about it, but it mystifies. I don't understand why Majority Report is so bad. Why is it so bad? Is what I'm trying to say. When I'm talking here about their politics or about their credentials, I'm talking about their performance on camera. Why is it so terrible? Why am I better than Sam Cedar? When he's paid, it's his job. He's wealthy because of it. Why? Anyway, sorry. I don't know where that came from. Nietzsche and Wig, I don't hate Mahler Steve. He's my favorite composer of all time. Oh my God. Okay. Dylan says, I vaguely recall you answering this at some point in the past. Whilst DFW isn't a good fiction writer, what do you make of his nonfiction works? I dare not call them essays, but they are quite fun. Are they? Are they quite fun? The one about teaching creative writing class, that was quite fun. That was a fun reading experience. Okay, we might have different definitions of fun. By the 15th footnote of the first part of the first sentence of that essay, I wasn't having so much fun as I was manually trying to use the fork at my Chinese restaurant to prong out my own eyeballs. Nietzsche and Wig says, why do you dislike Bernstein? Is there a particular recording that strikes you as poor? You name it, bub. You name it. I dislike Bernstein for the same reason that baseball fans dislike Pete Rose, because he thought he was bigger than the game. Jasper says, J.D. Vance has true talent. He can make the most normal policies like child tax credits sound strange and draconian. I know, it's so weird. I know it's not true, but I can't help but smile when some baffled political commentators say he's got to be doing this intentionally. He's got to be trying to tank this campaign. I know it's not true, but it's the only thing you're left thinking. He sounds like a comic book villain. Tolstoy 111 says, one wag said that Leonard Bernstein was the only conductor in history who could make the Vienna Philharmonic sound bad. Matt's Bookshelf finally caught a Stevestream. Well, hello, welcome. I watch Booktube for recommendations and getting out of my literary comfort zones. When I want to dive into a new genre, there's a great chance I can find a video on it. Oh yeah, huge chance. Michael Lombardo is responding to Hannah's books. Thanks for showing actual footage of the fabled Greater Boston Bibliophilius cryptid in its native habit. Roger Peterson, eat your heart out. Nietzsche Wig says, I hate the fact that Hannah made a video, for those of you who don't know what he's talking about. Hannah made a video of her recent trip to Boston, and she filmed me browsing in the Brattle sale lot, where I am known to go. I am known to go to the Brattle bookshop and be in the sale lot. People approach me almost every time I'm there and say, hey, are you that guy from YouTube? Nietzsche Wing says, I hate the fact that every time inflation gets slightly too high, millions of Americans decide they're happy to vote in fascism. Doesn't it feel weird? Doesn't it feel weird? I don't know how young you are. I forget. You said how young you are, but I don't remember. But these last 8 years have been just a horror show of showing me how fragile a lot of the things are in America that I thought were rock solid. And also, it would be really nice if some of that disgust and outrage that people show about inflation tipping at the point were directed to the right source, which is corporate profiteering. That would be really nice if people would start to rail against profits, against stock buybacks and record CEO salaries, which is where all this stuff is coming from. It's what all this stuff is happening for. It's not because of Joe Biden. Kevin JN says, love Booktube, but I have to be careful. Binge watching doesn't lead to impulse buying. P.S. I purchased a new book, The Bright Sword from B&N, $43 signed. Hope I enjoy it. $43 for a book. Well, Bright Sword is very good. I think you will enjoy it. It really surprised me. It's really good. Nietzsche, and you can, Randy Ray can back me up on that. He liked it as well. Nietzsche and Wig is responding to Tolstoy 111. Steve Bronstein says, what do you think about Bill Maher's inviting the Hawk Tua girl onto his podcast and asking creepy questions? I want so bad for her not to exist in our cultural discussion. Throwing out the ball at the game. You can say internet phenomenon, but you cannot explain why she is on Bill Maher, why she is throwing out the first ball at a ball game without indulging in pornography. You can't do it. There's no way to even put a euphemism on it. It makes me embarrassed. That's all. Nietzsche and Wig, you and the jockey Donahue look very similar. He must be a long lost cousin. I doubt it. I doubt it. Rasmus says, what's your favorite book published? Although I prefer Long Lost Cousin, at least you aren't theorizing like half the people on Reddit that I actually am him. That would be great. Rasmus says, what's your favorite book published by the NYRB? Stalingrad, probably, by Vasily Grossman. Sid says, I think I want to make a reading project out of the Oxford Very Short Introduction series next year. It's 700 plus books, but I'm excited about that journey. It will be largely a waste of your time, as long as you're prepared for that. I hate the idea of you wasting your reading time. It's so precious. Some of those very short introductions are written with pith and a good deal of wit and insight. Most of them are not. Most of them are no better than Wikipedia, which is free, especially if you're reading them on a subject that doesn't actually interest you. And you have to make it, for every one book that is written with insight and wit that justifies its existence in the world, in other words, you'll be reading 10 or even 20 that aren't. I would suggest maybe come up with another reading project, a different reading project. J. Scott Phillips says, I understand my own penance, but please don't punish everyone else in the chat. They are obviously all here for a block watch. Okay, nicely done. Let's see. Let's take a look at a blob watch. We have, I know from the data that I saw earlier today, that the Boston area does have a block of rain coming in the late weekend. So there's bound to be something that's coming. I wonder if it isn't that big blotch of scattered systems that we saw in the west in the last blob watch. Has that concentrated as it moves east? Let's see. Let's give the satellite time to coalesce its data. Look at the beautiful United States. How wonderful. I'm still getting the map, but not the actual information. See, so we've just got a map. We don't have any information yet. Why is that? Maybe the entire country is entirely free of weather. We just got the map. I have been to all of those states. I have been to every bit of that, all the way up here, all the way over there in the wilderness, all the way up there. Oh my God. Past the, oh, here we go. Now we've got some, oh, well, okay. Yeah, we do have activity. You don't have anything on the West Coast, but we've got a couple of things converging on the East Coast here. So what are we talking about here? I don't know. These things look like they're moving up. It looks like they're going to go off the lakes and into Canada, but this thing is coming this way. See, you can with this program, you can see a little bit a hint of direction. And that thing looks like it's working its way up the eastern seacoast. This thing is closer, much closer, but this one looks like the one that'll do it. We'll see. Boston is going to get something at the end of this weekend. Let's see here. Nietzsche and Wig, the Gore Vidal quote that keeps on coming to my head is, once again, words fail Norman Mailer. Steve Bronson said, I'd like to see Trump ask Biden for a pardon, and as quid pro quo, Biden tells him to drop out and start a Booktube channel. Well, okay. Okay. Nietzsche and Wig says, is your negative view of Robert Goulet owing to his alcoholism? No, no, it's not owing to his alcoholism. It's owing to his conspicuous lack of talent. I am still working on my way through Harold Bloom's poetry anthology. Must confess that I increasingly find his commenter incomprehensible. I simply skim it to get to the poems. Oh, that's sad. Randy Ray, many of the audience that Steve and I share know that I've been undergoing cancer treatment for the last 2 years. My oncologist called today to let me know that I'm now in remission. That's Randy's big news. Sarah says, I do watch a lot of Booktube who don't read the same stuff as myself, and that is great as I start to hear about a lot of different books. Jasper says, Trump on Booktube, wouldn't it take away from Steve's niche on grandiosity? Maximus Stenish says, oh, Randy, that is delightful to hear. Yes, everybody, some golf clap for Randy. Remission is no small thing. Tolstoy 111 says, in all seriousness, Bernstein made the single best recording of Haydn's 6 Paris symphonies, buoyant and driven. Sid says, I won't be so sure about McAvoy having blue eyes either. They don't seem real to me at all. They remind me of the Sci-Fi Channel's version of Dune with the blue on blue eyes of Ebad from the Fremen. They don't look real. They look artificially enhanced. Whether that's something he's putting in his eye or something he's doing on camera, but I don't know. I'm not willing to go that far. Oh, wait. All right, so we were at Benjamin McAvoy's obviously fake eyes. That was a long way. Let's try and find where we are here. Let's see here. Sorry. The chat jumped again on me. I still have not figured out a way to hold it in place. Nietzsche and Wing, there we go. Were you a fan of Andy Williams or Moon River or Obama is a Marxist fame? No, I'm not a fan of Andy Williams. Colombian Thunder, I used to watch Better Than Food when I was younger, but I can't anymore. How do you describe Benjamin McAvoy as how I feel about Better Than Food now? Probably best if I don't get started on Better Than Food. Just the Cliff Notes version is, I think he's in many ways worse. Nietzsche and Wig says, a while back I watched the video where you face down a cancellation mob. Glad you're still here. Wasn't that nice to see? Well, how could I look what I would have missed if I had taken the advice of some of my old non-Booktube friends and just dropped all this and walked away. Look what I would have missed. Steve Ronstein says, do you like books like Whoa? A little. Yeah, I used to like her a lot more before she started to talk like a combination of Lillian Hellman and God on Mount Sinai. That goes a long way for me. Again, I don't want if you like her channel, just fine, but I don't want to be hit over the head with pedagogy. I don't want to feel like the booktuber could at any minute, or sometimes restraining themselves from calling their audience kids. Okay, kids, gather around. It's story time. That scalds like acid. And that might not be present, but I get that feeling. And I don't like that feeling at all. I'm way too old to be lectured to. Andy Guy says, Steve, how far are you usually walking Frida before she starts to get tuckered out? It's starting to be a little shorter. it's starting to be a little shorter. I don't know how far it is. I don't count my steps. I don't have an Apple Watch, but it's not as long as it used to be. Before she is ready to just, all right, we can start heading back. Tolstoy 111, speaking of Imperial Chinese Civil Service exam, do you like Effie Price by Thomas Fontaine? No. Sid says, Steve, do you like the show Freaks and Geeks? No. Maximus Stedish, better than food, describing A Farewell to Arms as a near-perfect novel while still characterizing it as unevenly textured, was befuddling and cynical. People are trying to push me to talk about Better Than Food. You used the word cynical. I didn't, remember. You were the one to bring it up, not me. Damien P says, I've been watching your daily Penguin videos as of late. Such great content. I especially like hearing you speak on various editions that I've often been curious about. Your enthusiasm is infectious. Thank you. Sid says, I watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off recently because of you and found it hilarious, but also surprisingly wholesome. The ending was fantastic too. Are you telling me you've never seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off before? Oh my God. Is that possible? Good Lord. Yes, well, I know the movie extremely well, and I absolutely love it, so I'm glad you do too. Matthew G says, there's a video on YouTube of Claudio Votto conducting Mahler 9 that is really powerful. We're stuck with Mahler. Jack Walter says, I got tired of Better Than Food, but still love Leaf by Leaf. Chris is still truly in love with literature, and it shows. Trish Boville says, you are the friend who keeps my hold list at the library full. I've read many books that I would never have read. Oh, isn't that nice? Trish Boville says, Blob Watch, we are getting something in Chicago. Yeah, there's a big storm right where you are. That was one of the two systems. I'm wondering if it's coming here. J. Scott Phillips says, I'm celebrating Randy's great news. We should all be hydrating and staying sexy in solidarity. Yes, it is great news to be told that. Remission is great news. Medium John Silver says, the first booktuber I subscribed 2 years ago was Bookish Topics, a Russian woman who lives in Tokyo with her Persian husband. She led me to Don Quixote and the Invention of Moral. Nietzsche and Wink says, some of my favorite Mahler recordings. Oh my God. Okay, great. Got it. Tolstoy 111. Ever see Leonard Bernstein 1973 Harvard Norton lectures? His thesis was that tonality is innate to the way humans hear music. He was trying to connect it to Chomskyan linguistics. Quite good. Yeah, it sounds great. I'll clear my calendar. C.V. Bronstein says, did you catch Scaramucci and Mehdi Hassan on Carrie Swisher's podcast? I caught a bit of it. I really didn't. I have a little bit of a tolerance for these things. I have a switch, an off switch. If I don't feel like it's going anywhere, then I didn't listen to the whole thing. Was it worth it? Should I? Damien P says, I dropped Better Than Food when he made a mean dig at overweight people, really exposed himself on a self-righteous toad on that one. Yeah. Mean. Yeah. Tolstoy 111 is asking about that lecture again. Sid says, speaking of rural politics in the late Roman Republic era, I know. Nietzsche Winks is responding to Tolstoy. Okay, Mahler. It's all Mahler. Nietzsche and Wink. Turns out Gore Vidal and Leonard Bernstein met as per a Jay Perini anecdote about their holidaying together. It was fun reading about. Yeah, I'm guessing they did more than meet. Anti-Guy says, not much of a Mahler guy, especially when he just complains about woke endlessly on his HBO talk program. Oh, Mar, not Mar. Oh, no, wait, that's Mar. Ethereal Fantasy. On the vein of my last comments, I would love to see a video or article from you talking about top 10 or so lists of books that young men should read. There's no should in reading. You're not going to get me to talk like Better Than Food or Benjamin McAvoy. There's no should in reading. Steve Bronstein says, have you ever seen the video of when Aretha Franklin stopped in for Pavarotti to sing Nessun Dorma? It was something. I think I have seen that video. I should find it again. It was something, if I remember correctly. Anti-Guy says, what irritates me about Sam is his constant focusing on what's going on in Israel and not enough focus on the wolf at our own front door. In fact, the wolf inside the walls. Sam Cedar here, right. Sam Cedar, in that regard, is exactly the same annoyance level for me as all these other YouTube pundits who think that there's 100% guaranteed that they will be doing this in 2 years. They talk about existential threats, but they do not believe them. They do not believe them at all. A virulent, pogromist, fascist, anti-Semitic fascism is eagerly waiting just at the doorstep of controlling this country. And Sam Cedar doesn't act that way. A list-keeping, viciously vindictive, enemy-punishing regime is just at the doorstep of taking control of this country. And the Bulwark doesn't act that way. They talk about it, but they don't act that way. The Pod Save America guys, not one of them has even thought about buying a house in Germany or France or Portugal, much less making plans to move there. Not even thought it. They don't believe what they're saying, which makes them grifters. But anyway, Tolstoy 111 is responding to Nietzsche. Gandhi says the comment from Vidal to Mailer was from the infamous segment on Dick Cavett show. He really made Mailer look like a fool. I've got Mahler on the brain. It wasn't hard to make Mailer look like a fool. Didn't need that comment. He looked like a fool from the minute he opened his mouth in that segment. He looked like a fool all the time. That stupid combination of 13-year-old provocativeness and pomposity. Just Hannah's book says, what fabulous news. Yes, indeed. Randy Ray says, I love the Bright Sword so much that I started a new RPG campaign with some friends. King Arthur Pendragon is a fun game that I'm 99% sure Grossman has played. Well, that's interesting. Monitor says, hello. Mystery Mayhem says, great news, Randy. Quaint and Curious Problem says, Steve, would you say that DFW's nonfiction is supposedly fun? It's torturous. It's torturously twee and condescending. It just, I don't see how people are not tortured by this guy. I really don't. Again, my assumption is they aren't tortured by him because they literally don't know what their alternatives are. That has almost always been the case in my experience with people who call Cormac McCarthy a great writer. I can't explain Christian Lorenzen. He does know what the alternatives are. But most of the people who praise his slop prose don't know what the alternatives are. Same thing with DFW's essays. They don't know what... Anti-Guy says, can we have a blob watch on the Bay Area, California? I live in East Bay, Santa Clara County. Well, it looked pretty clear to me. Let's take a look, though. Specific requests for blob watches? I'm here for it. Hey, you got a tiny little thing. You got a... Sorry, don't take that wrong. You got a tiny little thing. You've got that. A tiny little thing there, but nothing else. And that looks fairly big, but not productive. So your tiny little thing is not productive. Let's see here. Sid says, ouch, I had no idea very short introduction books were so inconsistent. All right, switching the reading project to more tentacle fiction. They are very inconsistent. Far better. If you're going to devote a huge amount of time to a reading project, read all the Penguin classics. There you go. That's a project that won't let you down. Nietzsche and Wig says, I'm relieved Enoch Powell never became PM. He was erratic, unstable, and egotist, a poor team player, and had unsound views on foreign policy. You have just described the last 10 PMs. And there's the speech. Yeah, the speech is the thing. That's the thing. Wrongly or rightly, I think wrongly, that's it for him. That's all that he is. Gail Doley says, stopping in to say hi, I'm very happy for you, Randy Ray. Yes, everybody should be happy for Randy. In Remission is great. Moni Doyle says, I'm reading a book by one of my favorite writers, Liz Tomford. Again, you mentioned a writer that I don't know. That's really strange. And the chat has jumped again. There we go. Kevin J. N says, whatever happened to Suicide Bunny? You haven't mentioned him or his houseplants lately, or my houseplants lately. The houseplants are not a success story. 3 of the 5 of them died. Slow, horrible, agonizing deaths. 2 of them are still alive. I water them regularly. They get plenty of sunlight. They don't appear to be dying. So they don't look anything like they did originally, but they don't appear to be dying. So they're hanging on. And the Suicide Bunny, I cannot comment on because the air conditioning unit is in the window, blocking my view of where he used to bask in the sun, tempting every peregrine falcon within 1,000 miles to tear him to pieces. Anti-Guy says, I really like Vidal, but I feel like it'd be a risky endeavor to be friends with him. Yeah, I was talking about that with a friend at the Brattle today at the sale lot. You wouldn't want to know him. You wouldn't want to be his friend. Better to stick to the pros. Nietzsche and Wig says, I would have taken the risk. It would have been a bad risk. Anti-guy says he would have peed in your soup or something. Monet Dole says I was able to get to go to a pool today. There is something about the smell of chlorine in pool water while reading a book. I know. How I would love to do that. To go to a hotel with a pool and just lay there on the chaise lounge reading. Oh my. But I couldn't bring Frida, so I wouldn't, and she wouldn't like it, so I wouldn't do it. Luca says, "Hi Steve, Australian here." Well, hello. Is there any specific reason you've never visited? And what do you think of Gerald Murnane? Oh my God, Murnane. He's been getting more attention recently. Yes, he has, but I don't think anything of him one way or another, except a very conscious attempt by the American publishing industry to push him on Dude Bros. And it worked. They gravitated towards him right away. But no, there's no specific reason why I've never been to Australia. I almost did go. I could almost see it. I could see a smudge on the horizon. I almost did go. And I thought, I have plenty of time. And then I just never did. And then suddenly traveling stopped, like musical chairs. And there was one place I hadn't been. Tolstoy 111, Ferris Bueller has a beautiful structural device. The second act begins with Ed Rooney's leaving the school. The third act begins when he enters the house. Yeah, thanks for explaining it. You shouldn't have to do that. It's a great, you shouldn't have to do it, but breaking down things by the Sarah Caldwell method. But yes, it has a brilliant structural device. It also has lots and lots of good filming, but it's also fun and touching. Nietzsche and Wig says, are there any old-fashioned crooners you like from the 50s and 60s? All the Irish ones. No one is not. Anti-Guy says, Steve doesn't scare easily. Just try and intimidate him with being canceled. Oh, well. I mean, nobody likes the prospect. But I've got all of you now. I've got everything that I want out of Booktube already without Booktube. I could remove it from the equation. I would still have tons of people in my email, tons of people on Voxer, plenty of people who are rotating to come over here physically and pet Frida and talk books until the wee small hours. No, you all keep me on the straight and narrow. I'm not going to say anything that's going to really offend you. I hope I'm not going to want to offend you. No, I'm not worried about it at all now. I have all of you, so I'm not worried about it at all now. MANNE says, what did you almost get canceled for? Well, it was dumb on my part. I made an utterly tone-deaf comment. I don't believe that's what really fueled the furor. I think the furor really came from the context of the larger conversation in that comment, where I was pointing out how many fake readers there are on YouTube. I think that's what people didn't like. But I made a comment that could easily have been, I swear I was not thinking of it as sexist, but it could easily have been interpreted that way. I felt like a fool once I read it with clean eyes. I realized what a dumb thing to do. And I'd like to think I don't do anything like that anymore and haven't in forever, but that's what almost did it. That's in fact, I did it for a lot of people. The thing about cancellation, you can still keep doing the stuff you love, but it never goes away. People who were in grade school when that happened know to stay away from me. They have this sense of damaged goods, or, oh, if I want to succeed on this platform, I better not befriend him or let him befriend me. That crops up almost every year, even all this time later, almost a decade later. So there are costs involved. Nietzsche and Wig says, no one has heard from Anita Bryant lately. I will always like her recording of Paper Roses. And Gaia says, and Anita Bryant is dead by now, I would imagine. And Nietzsche and Wig says, I think she's still alive. Well, it's only if there was some device we could use to find out. Shout outs to Harvey Milk, by the way. MANNE says, I finally got my collected short stories by Gogol. What is your favorite story from Gogol? Don't know that I know his work well enough to have a favorite. I should revisit these Russians, obviously. Ingrid Fitz says, all kidding aside, Steve, I look forward to you and your book conversations we all enjoy. I would indeed be sad if it all went away. Well, the thing is, the point I was making about cancellation there is that it wouldn't go away. If I stopped making videos, you could still email me all day long if you want. Everybody could. And you all know that. So it wouldn't entirely go away. We've already made connections. I would miss it definitely making the videos. I'm enough of a ham so that I would miss it. Sid says, yes, I've never watched Ferris Bueller before. I should email you again for more comedy movie recs. Oh my. Never watched Ferris Bueller. Oh my goodness. How wonderful. Oh, how wonderful. Bet you'll never think of the Chicago Museum of Art the same way again. Oh man. Nietzsche and Wig. One blessed day, hopefully, I will write for the LRB and the TLS and all those fancy journals and magazines like my hero Hitchens. I've never written for either one of them. Anti Guy says, are we going to be living in Gilead come January 2025? I'm not going to trivialize it. There's a huge faction in this country that doesn't care what the outcome of the election is. They are never going to get this close to power again, and they know it. I think it'd be foolish to underestimate what they'll do, especially with the head of their fascist movement promising to indemnify your local police. And himself being a candidate for an office that is now beyond the reach of the law. The president is now, according to the Trump court, the president is now above the law and can commit crimes, including murder. That plus the head of a fascist movement promising to indemnify his own brown shirts, all of whom are armed to the teeth, to put it mildly. Anyway, Michael Lombardo says, I heard mention of James Michener earlier, found a mint hardcover of his Mexico yesterday. Not one of my favorites. I should probably go back and reread it. He's a perfect candidate for me for ebooks, as opposed to a whole shelf of those big hardcovers. I like him, but he's a perfect candidate. Him and a few other, like Ellis Peters, the Brother Cadfael Mysteries, are perfect candidates for me for ebooks. Because you can go back to it all you want, but it's not taking up a whole bookcase. Rasmus says, who is your favorite author named Steve? Who is your favorite author named Donahue? Oh my God, my favorite author named Steve. Oh, no idea. My favorite author named Donahue would probably be Dennis Donahue. Steve Bronstein says, I thought the Mooch had some interesting insights on Trump, like he wouldn't be surprised if he ends up asking Biden for a pardon in exchange for dropping out. No, that will never happen. If Scaramucci said that, then he's lost his mind. That will never happen. Not a chance of it ever happening. Steve Bronstein says, also curious, what do you think of Mehdi Hassan and Kara Swisher? I like Mehdi Hassan. I think he can be quite good. Disgraceful that he was given the heave-ho because he was making ripples with fascists. That's disgraceful. Kara Swisher, I don't know well enough. Ingrid Fitz says, I just picked up a nice paperback of Missioner's Alaska as I collect books with cold atmospheres. Nietzsche and Wig says, I have been a fan of Douglas Murray since I was a teenager. Glad he's much bigger now, but disturbed by some of the company he keeps, including idiotic apologia for Orban, I assume you mean. Orban. But Nietzsche, I mean, I agree. I have watched him also for the whole of his career. But Nietzsche and Wig, we want to be very careful here. It's not just the company he keeps. Some of his opinions, some of his stances have curdled. There's no point in liking him and denying that. Some of the things he says now, he says them in interesting ways. He is an interesting writer and thinker to pay attention to, but he is definitely drifting to the alt-right. There's no point in denying that. That you don't do your own admiration of his earlier writings any credit by denying that. Quentin Curious Volume says, congratulations to Randy. So does Steve Bronstein, as well they should, because it's an amazing piece of news. Just amazing. Anti-Guy says, I think DFW actually enjoyed torturing his readers. Yeah. And his editors, especially his editors. Gandhi says, what is your favorite Edna O'Brien book? Yeah, nice try. MANNE says, I've met a surprising amount of people, like lots and lots of them, who are generally really well read, and then go on to say Cormac McCarthy is a genius. I'm not sure why this is the case. I would argue it's because they heard somebody else say it. Almost, again, I don't understand where Christian Lorenzen's coming from, but it's almost never because they've studied him or even read him. I still can't believe it. This photocopied piece of a page of the Passenger, absolutely crap prose, the kind of stupid stoner nonsense, and everybody in the comments field saying, oh man, so great, It's just anyway. Nick Piccarilli says, "How's the new John Quincy Adams biography?" Um, if it's the one that I'm thinking you're thinking of, it wasn't all that good. There's been a lot of biographies of John Quincy Adams in the last 10 years, and it doesn't. I didn't think it really measured up to them. But we're not thinking about the same one. Mark says, off topic, but I recently realized why I dislike Robert Greene. Yes, he's a substandard prose stylist, but more than that, his work has all the shrewdness and piercing insight of a horoscope. Oh my God, you're right. You're absolutely. His prose is the least reason to dislike him. Mark says it's the vagueness and complete dearth of actionable advice. After reading him, you felt as if you've not read at all. There's that word actionable. I guess we're going to change its definition. I guess that's what we're going to do. Ethereal fantasy. I'm sorry to keep saying this, but I want to know what alternatives you would recommend as alternatives to Cormac McCarthy. No reason to apologize, but there isn't any set alternative to Cormac McCarthy. I would need to know more in order to recommend things. There are plenty of things I can recommend, including plenty of them I feel certain will work, but not just as a blanket thing. MANNE says, do you think Beartown is worth reading? No. Or do you think it's overhyped? It is overhyped. Don't bother. Gandhi says, is your negative opinion about Philip? It's your negative opinion about Philip Roth. The plants are protesting. I think it's more, I just don't get this. I don't get them. I thought it would be neat to do. Two of them are holding on. Christian Junk Mail says, I really enjoyed DFW's novel, The Broom of the System, but I was working at a small town public library and probably didn't know better. Well, or maybe you saw something. Broom of the System was edited. So maybe that helped. Anti-Guy says, on the contrary, the plants are wilting because of the sheer mention of Roth's name. J. Scott Phillips says, is this the year we finally get Dude Brovember? I've been stocking up on Bukowski. Dude Brovember? That's not a bad idea, is it? I think Brock, in an active mind, wanted to do Dude Bro December, and I had to tell him I'm not reliable in December. I'll be gone halfway through the month, and spotty up until then. But Dude Brovember would work. Tolstoy 111 says, you love E.M. Forster, so I'm curious what you think of the 3 Merchant Ivory adaptations. I largely like them. David Thompson thought they were drained of ambiguity from his narrative voice. Right. Well, the whole point about David Thompson is sometimes you agree with him, sometimes you don't. That's what I love him. That's what I love about his writing. But I thought they were fine for what they were. They're not as good as the books. But Nietzsche Wink says, if I am ever canceled, well, there's always GB News for me to uncancel myself. Gandhi says, have you started Vertigo yet? No. Well, the reread, I assume you mean. I've dug deeply into it as the advanced copy, but nailing it down in order to review it, when is that? That is next month, right? Is that next month? I think so. Yeah. Well, and it's good. It's good. It's not. It's lacking quite the sweep that I wanted. I think if you wanted a history of the Weimar Republic from an artistic point of view, it might be good. It might be better than if you're looking for something else on some other aspect. Cecilia Concepcion, I love your P&P read-along. Discovered your channel recently after reading Cold Comfort Farm, and your video about it was one of the few vids on YouTube. Your voice is a daily staple in our apartment now. Oh, my God. You get some complaints from the neighbors. But Pride and Prejudice could not be more fun. It just could not be more fun to do. All I'm thinking about now is how to keep it up. What can I do next? Andrew McDonald says, I used to read John Hughes when he wrote for National Lampoon. What did you think of that magazine? Didn't like National Lampoon, like John Hughes. Steve Bronstein says, The Nose by Gogol is really good and funny. First part of Dead Souls 2. MANNE says, oh, wow, I haven't watched it either. I'll certainly check it out, though. J. Scott Phillips. Oh. All right, we know it was J. Scott Phillips. If I were you, I wouldn't worry so much about getting canceled. I'd worry more about the black van sitting across the street from Hyde Cottage. Nietzsche Wig says, thoughts on Rory Stewart. I'm fond of him, though I find his failure to call out wokery like he calls out right-wing populism frustrating. Yeah, I'm fond of him too. I don't quite know if I don't have to live under him. So my fondness for him might be that I've enjoyed his books. It could be that I'm not paying attention to him on the ground level of politics. Tolstoy 111 says, I live in Chicago. Every time I'm at the Art Institute, I stare at the Seurat. Yes, the little kid as the music swells. The little kid, his camera just focuses closer and closer on the face and then on the mouth as the camera keeps cutting back to him. Anyway, sorry. Matt Sheridan, hi Steve, sorry for being late. It's inexcusable. But we have to wrap this. Oh my God, I haven't even looked at the time. We need to wrap this up. Cramerica Industries, hey Steve, any word through the grapevine if Matthew of Mayberry Book Club or Micah Cummins are ever taking a break from Gasp real life to make videos again? Well, I think it was Quaint and Curious Volumes mentioned earlier that Matthew at Mayberry Book Club is fine. It's just not making videos. And I have been nagging Micah. I've been trying to woo Micah back to Booktube. But he's, like you say, he's involved in this real life stuff, and it's apparently horrible. I mean, it's horrible how addictive it is. Leo says, are you willing to do a read along of some Southern Gothic novel from a lady? Of course, has to be in the public domain. I don't know what I want to do next. I'm trying not to think about it because we've got real fireworks for Pride and Prejudice, second half of Pride and Prejudice. Rasmus says, do you think there's any parallel between America's situation and the plot of Houellebecq's Submission? Just replace Islam with fascism? Well, yeah, obvious parallels, intentional parallels. Gandhi says, why the nice try about O'Brien? Let's just say I'm not a fan. Ingrid Fitz says, I just finished Gorky Park and it was fun to read. I'm really enjoying reading books from the late 1970s and early 80s. Gorky Park is really good. Yeah. Plenty of other recommendations I can make for you. Have you read Jaws? Have you read Jaws? I want to give that a try. Nietzsche and Wig says, what has been your experience of people around you being mindlessly conformist, and how have you kept your sanity as a tough, independent-minded, critical thinking individualist? Well, it helps to be a shut-in. I'm a lonely, frail old shut-in. Bean, cut it out, baby. Do you want to come over here? Huh? Frida, cut it out. You want to come over here and see your fans? Come here. You can do it. You can do it. Come on. You can do it, baby. Come on. There you go. There you go. You're going to make a little bed over here? Oh, there you go. That's a signal that we need to stop. I don't know how much of your question is ironic, but I'm not in any danger of succumbing to conformity. Let's put it that way. Matt Sheridan says, Larry McMurtry would be a good and healthy alternative to McCarthy. Generally speaking, yes, but I'd still want to know more. I mean, you can't go wrong with Larry McMurtry, but I'd still want to know more. Steve Bronstein says, I become disillusioned with Douglas Murray and Sam Harris for that matter. Me too. Matt Sheridan says, have you kept up with the McCarthy Reddit? Are the dude bros still in a furor over you? Oh, no, I haven't looked. I'm assuming they've long since forgotten me. They have the attention span of a moth. Hannah's book says, I'm totally for Dude Brovember. Yes. I would want you to be a co-host. I'd also want Randy and Brock from An Active Mind. I want a couple of actual dude bros to be in the thing. Tolstoy 111. Maybe we could lure Micah back with Dude Brovember. Tolstoy 111 says, what everyone loves most about Ferris Bueller's Day Off is how John Hughes used focal lengths. Hence, I will now explicate. Nietzsche and Wig says, once upon a time I yearned to visit Russia. Sadly, it's now under fascism, so that will not happen for some decades, if ever. Well, it was under the Soviet Union when I visited. That wasn't no picnic. Still managed to do it. Anti-Guy says, Steve, I read Shakespeare's Sonnet 71 for the first time yesterday, and I was pretty amazed by it. Yeah. It's one of Francis Bacon's best things. Evan Fleming says, hi, Steve, big fan for a long time. Besides In Praise of Folly, what works of Erasmus would you recommend? Well, I've never recommended Praise of Folly. I don't recommend Erasmus. I don't want people going into him thinking this is really good when he's very much a writer of his time. I don't want people to be disappointed. I especially don't want them to write to me and say he's not all that good. But if you're in the mood for Erasmus, if you want to meet him halfway, learn his context, well, there are all sorts of levels to things that I could recommend. Then the other thing that is immediate, like The Praise of Folly, is the Julius Exclusus. A little thing that he wrote, and of course vociferously denied writing, about Pope Julius II being excluded from heaven when he dies. which is not that long and which is very entertaining, very good, very cutting. And then you move on from there to like the Familiar Colloquies or even the Adages, which don't have good popular translations. Amazing to me. The best-selling books in the world in their time, they don't have good translations. A good fat 1,000-page later edition of the Adages with a good introduction, lots and lots of notes, be wonderful. And then you move even further than that to New Testament commentary. But so it depends on where in the Erasmus spectrum you are, I guess. Nietzsche and Wig says, Harold Holz's book on Lincoln and the Press has been on my desk for a while. What did you make of it? I really liked it. I didn't like it as much as Holz's other Lincoln books, but the Fates might want me to reconsider that because I found it in a little free library just recently. In fact, there was a hardcover copy at the Brattle this morning, and I looked at it and thought, oh, I got it for free. I don't need a second copy, so I'll leave this for somebody else. I like it. It's just Holz has written a couple of other books on Lincoln that I like better. Matt Sheridan says, were you ever a fan of Mad Magazine? No. Nietzsche and Wig says, Nabokov insulting comments on other writers will never stop being funny. I kind of agree. Gandhi says, it's interesting to contemplate who will be the historian 20 to 40 years from now writing about 2024. Yeah. Interesting to contemplate. Alarming to contemplate. It's sad to know that they won't be American. The Vegan Heretic says, my copy of Imagica came today. Ready when you are, bub. I don't have a copy of Imagica at the moment. The Brattle will provide. Sooner or later, a hardcover copy will show up, but I don't have one at the moment. Alan Cowley says, hi, Steve. I know you warn about the link between Trump and an indemnified police force, but do you think the military is similarly compromised? Yes, they are. First of all, first part of the answer is yes, they are. Nobody likes to talk about it, but they are. And the second part is that they are also constitutionally forbidden to intervene. So if your police force in Oshkosh, Wisconsin decides to start disappearing people who don't have Trump signs on their lawns, it takes an act of Congress to get the military involved because of the posse comitatus. So we could be in for a horrible, horrible mess. I don't expect the forces of evil in this country outnumber the forces of good. I don't expect them to just disappear. If, for instance, an Obama-style coalition seems like it's going to put Kamala Harris in office. MANNE says, I have heard you talk about TBK versus CNP. What about Anna Karenina versus War and Peace? Are those abbreviations supposed to be the Brothers Karamazov and Crime and Punishment? Okay. I know you like the latter more, but why? Yeah, I do. I like War and Peace a lot more than Anna Karenina for the same reason I like the Iliad a lot more than the Odyssey. I like the sprawl of it. I like its disdain for one neat narrative. J. Scott Phillips, real life stuff. Well, what is Booktube? The Matrix? I know. I'm not working on Matthew at Mayberry Book Club, but I'm working on Micah. I would like to have him return. That would be nice. I'd like to have him return to Booktube. I'd also like to have him return to Hyde Cottage. Nietzsche and Wig says, Kenneth Copeland used to be a rock and roll singer. He never made it, so he had to become a gospel grifter instead. He did finally break into the charts with Wind of God remix, though. Is that the breath of God? I know. So, Ethereal Fantasy says, what are your favorite Chinese works of literature? Haven't I gone over them? I thought I've gone over the 5 great Chinese classics. I love them all. I don't know which one I like the most. Probably The Water Margin. Patricia Ann says, Steve, what are your thoughts on the novels of Wilkie Collins? They don't do anything for me, obviously. Right? You've never heard me talk about them on this channel. I never talk about them. I don't do reading events. I don't talk about my favorite plot twists or anything like that. Lots of other booktubers do. He's just never worked for me. Colombian Thunder says, hi, Steve. Any thoughts on George Romero's The Living Dead? I've been craving, some zombie fiction. I enjoyed World War Z recently. Also interested in something more fun. I don't like The Living Dead. Romero's The Living Dead. I'm assuming you've seen Dawn of the Dead, the greatest zombie movie of all time. Oh my God, the incredible. Dawn of the Dead is. I cannot praise it enough. Colombian Thunder says less Walking Dead and more Return of the Living Dead. Hannah's book says not a dude, bro, but would be happy to co-host. Matt Sheridan says Rooney. Okay. MAN and E says, generally speaking, McCarthy fans are generally speaking also fans of Dostoevsky and Melville. Nonsense. Considering that they are both sort of philosophical too, while at the same time being actual craftsmen. Never seen it. I've never seen that be true. That claim be true. Gandhi says, I am starting to give up hope that Robert Caro will finish the last volume of LBJ, especially in the passing of Robert Gottlieb. No, he's not going to. I don't know why people think that he and George R. R. Martin are going to finish their books. I don't know why that is. It's kind of weird. Nietzsche and Wig says, I used to love watching the Cadfile TV series with Derek Jacobi, which was uploaded on YouTube. Yeah, it was a good series. A little bit of overacting, but Jacobi was always spot on, just perfect as Cadfile. Tolstoy 111 says, a retired Russian lit prof I know sent Nabokov a book on Gogol he liked and got this response. Dear Professor, thank you for sending me this book, with which I completely disagree. Nietzsche and Wig says, Nabokov and E.O. Wilson bromance sounds so cool. A shame the ending was so stupid. Okay, we're talking about Nabokov? Is that what we're doing? The P guy says, I'm new here. Are you a writer? Yeah, I am a writer and an editor. Sid says, Bacon, you'll be hearing from Marlovian soon, good sir. Andrew McDonald says, oh, what does Andrew McDonald say? The chat jumped. Speaking of Ferris, what did you make of Broderick and Witherspoon in Election? Oh, I like the movie, if that's what you mean by what did I make of them. Evan Fleming says, is Will Self's fiction worthwhile? It is, but it's not easy at all. He is doing his own thing in his fiction, especially the big novels that have come out in the last 10 years, 20 years. He's doing his own thing. No concessions to any kind of Western literature. They are worthwhile, but oh my, they're not easy. Leo Percara says, is there equivalent of Dude Bro for the ladies? Chicklet, yeah. Anti-Guy says, which is usually uncharacteristic of him. I don't know what that's about. I don't remember. I don't want to fiddle with the chat. Albert, I certainly loved his praise of Folly. The translation, which wasn't in English, was very effective. Out of this anecdotal evidence, I can deduce that the English translators are ineffective. None of them are funny, and none of them actually capture the sparkle in Erasmus. There's a sparkle that made him beloved. It's to me, it seems like the foremost quality in his prose, and yet it is systematically missing from English translations. Nietzsche and Wig says, Pierre was my favorite character in War and Peace. Then he got annoying, and I became interested in Natasha. MAN and E says, also, Steve, what are your gripes with Nabokov? He sounds like an interesting author who's worth reading. My gripes with him started with Lolita, and they've just expanded out from there. Jasper says, the Moonstone was such a disappointment. I thought it was disappointing. I know that I'm in the minority on Booktube. Tolstoy 111 says, Nabokov is great. Steve is sadly wrong. Poor guy. Michael Lombardo says, got to get David to shelf tour his current World War collection. His previous video tours were great guides for book shopping. I can only perform one miracle at a time. I'm trying to get Micah back on Booktube, getting David Murphy back on Booktube. Oh my God. I think probably the next time you will see him will be when he's on a video here. I'd love it if he came back and did a shelf tour. If he did a shelf tour, Jason Harrigan did a shelf tour, I would do a shelf tour. Anti-Guy says, those first 2 seasons of The Walking Dead were pretty good. I agree. MAN and E says, sorry for the abbreviations, but there is a word limit, Yes, that's what I figured. The P guy says, Land of the Dead is my main inspiration for my zombie project. You have a zombie project? How interesting. Tolstoy 111 says, were you talking about Romero's Dawn of the Dead or the remake? I'm talking about the remake with Ving Rhames, which is sublime. Absolutely perfect. Matt Sheridan says, McCarthy fans are in need of serious help if they compare him to Melville and Dostoevsky. Well, they might compare him to Dostoevsky. I've never read Melville. I was to be able to smell that a mile away. Anti-Guy says, George Martin could just be jerking our chains so more people buy the other Song of Ice and Fire books. Well, I don't know quite what you mean by that, but he's not going to finish the series. Obviously, he's not. Ethereal Fantasy says, Nabokov was an occasional genius. Okay. Anti-Guy says, Will Self is weird. His novels are weird. They are worth it, but they are weird. Matt Sheridan says Shaun of the Dead is my favorite zombie movie. Tolstoy 111 says Nabokov was a constant genius. Okay. Nietzsche and Wig says I had to DNF Pale Fire because I felt Nabokov was trying too hard. The P guy says I'm currently working on my first novel, outlining now. I took a lot of Brandon Sanderson's lectures. Did you enjoy his lectures? Are they really good for writing? I've watched parts of some of them. I know some people who swear by them, though, and who swear by them because they lack all pretension. They are instead just instructive, just him in the trenches with you, which I find very interesting. Maybe I should watch some of them. Albert says, you normally never mention George Martin, so now that you mention him, what is your opinion on his books pre-Song of Ice and Fire? Well, I have praised Sand Kings enormously and Night Flyers. They are great. They're long short stories. They're fantastic. I thought he went off the. I also like Fever Dream, his vampire novel. I thought he went a little off the rails with all that wild card crap. I didn't know what to do with it, and I didn't know whether or not to take it seriously. And then the Song of Ice and Fire, but his science fiction and horror and fantasy from pre-Song of Ice and Fire is really good. If you can find a short story collection, there used to be an old Timescape paperback that I still wish I had. It's probably hugely expensive now and collectible because of him. Columbian Thunder says, I really love both Dawn of the Dead's. Snyder's remake still scares me. Snyder's remake is so great. It's so great. Every detail of it. Right up to the horrible ending, but right from the early beginning, from the very opening of the movie is just incredible. Tolstoy 111 says, Pale Fire demands constant authorial effort to keep up the premise. Okay. Nietzsche and Wig says, I miss HBO's Rome. We're not agreeing on much tonight, are we? Evan Fleming says, how do I tell my friend whose Dude Bro blog is bad? That generally will be counterproductive. I would instead, well, first of all, you can't tell him that it's bad if he doesn't want to hear that. So you might want, the next time it comes up organically, you might want to ask him, can we talk about your blog? If the answer is no, well, then don't do it. No friendship is worth a blog. Nietzsche and Wig says, what do you make of Saul Bellows, who is the Proust of the Papuans comment? Well, as you might guess, I'm not familiar with that comment, since that's the whole point of the question. Anti-Guy says, there's that new Roman Empire series on Peacock that I hear is pretty good. Tony Hopkins is in it. Did you just finish some bocce ball with him? You call him Tony Hopkins? You just finished some bocce ball with him, did you? I presume from the little that I've seen of it that he is an aging Vespasian and that the drama is Titus and Domitian, I assume. The P guy says, I personally swear by them. This must be the Sanderson essays. For the sole reason that they aren't strict rules. They're more like guidelines to help new writers, and he encourages writers to never be slaves to the rules. That's the impression I get. That they're totally unpretentious, that they're totally there to help you, him alongside you. That's the impression that I get. But I ought to watch those essays. That would be very refreshing to watch. MANNE says, IDK, McCarthy is so lacking in skill, I guess you can make up a new category of writing where he might be considered interesting in an intellectual, not real sort of way. Matt Sheridan says that was the only good thing Zack Snyder ever did. I can think of 300 reasons why you're wrong. Anti-Guy says, so Snyder used to make good movies. The Watchmen? Gandhi says, do you think you will receive an advance copy of Cochrane's final biography of Stalin? I will receive it if he ever writes it. Sure. Steve Bronstein says, is Will Self weird like J.D. Vance is weird? No. No. The P guy says, to me, Sanderson's lectures were life-changing as someone who struggles with getting started, procrastination, and sticking to my projects. Well, then he's doing the Lord's work. That's great, because you should stick with it. You should stick with it. You're the only one who can write your project. J. Scott Phillips says, my introduction to George R. R. Martin was a second kind of loneliness, a fascinating SFF story from a 1973 analog because I am wicked old. You took the words out of my mouth. You're wicked old. Nietzsche Wink says, Anthony Hopkins. Oh, you mean Tony? in The Two Popes is fantastic. He was really good in that, wasn't he? Anti-Guy says, yes, I play bocce ball with Sir Tony Hopkins all the time. He drinks like a fish. The P guy, you guys are going to give this man an aneurysm. No, but we do have to wrap things up. So Matt Sheridan says, you're a fan of the Man of Steel, Steve. No, no, I'm not. Anti-Guy says, I thought Hopkins was pretty great as Richard Nixon. Oh, I wanted so much for that movie to be better than it was. A couple of scenes are good. None of it is great. Not even the scene where he meets the hippie protesters at the Lincoln Memorial. None of the scenes are great, but some of the scenes are good, but they all should have been great. What a combination of talent in front of and behind the camera and subject matter. And yet, I just didn't do it for me at all. Nietzsche and Week says, women were drawn to Hitchens. Watch any video of him. That's partly why he got away with all those sexist comments, I suspect. No, we just keep disagreeing. No, women were repulsed by him. Alan Colley says, do you like Ted Chiang's books? Overrated, underrated, or just about right rated? I'd say just about right rated, maybe overrated in certain quarters of Booktube. But again, by people who don't know what they're talking about, not in a negative way, but they literally don't know science fiction, so they tend to overrate this stuff. The P guy said, that's a great bit of advice I've heard before. Nothing is original, but only you can write your books. Right, only you can, and you should. It's a duty to the future. Gandhi says, yikes, why the snarky comments about Kotkin? I thought it was due out March 2025. Don't hold your breath. Anti-Gaia says, I think it's just because Oliver Stone is a stubborn jerk. I hear Steve. Must be. All the elements were there. That's what kills me about it, is that all the elements were there to make it great. And it wasn't great. That movie should have been great. MAN&E says, yeah, well, you are distracting me from my beautiful Genji. Get out of here. I know, he is beautiful, isn't he? Nietzsche Week says, I want to read Ted Sorens's book on JFK on your recommendation. You should. Tolstoy 111 says, do you think Howard Pyle's books hold up? They do. Matt Sheridan says, I think Oliver Stone wanted to make the Nixon film great, but I feel like he got in his own way. Probably he did. You can see it almost happen, and frustratingly, it doesn't. Nietzsche and Week says, did you feel more kindly towards Hitchens when he was a young hottie? No. No, I did not. Jack O'Hara says, what do you think of the movie All the President's Men? It's remarkably bad. Watch it with a cold eye. It's remarkably bad. The writing, the directing, all the boom mic shadows in the scenes, the fact that half the cast is in the bag very visibly all the time. The acting alone, the pacing, it's so ridiculous. It really should be remade. I know that's heresy, but it really should be remade. Ethereal Fantasy says, what do Steve and the chat think about Shogun by James Clavell? Are you asking me or asking them? I read it this year and thought it was white, misogynist, incel BS. I want something similar, but too many books just copy it. We completely disagree. I did a read-along of it. There are a bunch of videos you could watch. Hannah's book says, thanks for the live stream, Steve. Happy reading tonight. Yes, I do have to wrap things up. I've got to get the bean outside, and I've got to get to work. The P guy says, really quick, do you think a book centered around just one character would be hard for me to make work and keep it interesting? It's not the current fad. Multiple POVs is the current fad in writing, but you can certainly do it. People have done it. You could certainly do it. When it comes to zombie projects, everyone is thinking of World War Z, which is famously multi-point of view. But if it works for you, give it a try. If it doesn't feel right to do multiple points of view, then don't do it. Don't pander to any idea of what people are reading. Make them read you. Anti-Guy says, come on, Steve. Hal Ashbury in that movie you didn't like? No. No. MAN&E says, were you a fan of the new Napoleon movie? No, it was ridiculous. It wasn't just bad. It was ridiculous. I laughed my head off at it. Nietzsche and Week says, Oliver Stone made a fawning propaganda film about Chavez many years ago. I do not recommend. Matt Sheridan says, All the President's Men would be an amazing film if put into the right hands. It deserves to be a good film. A remake would work. Be interesting who I would cast for it, but a remake would work. Anti-Guy says he did the same with Putin. Matt Sheridan says, I lost most of my reposts for the Stone, but he made that Putin documentary and became a bootlicker. Yeah. Nietzsche and Wig says, Oliver Stone, Michael Moore, Charles Lindbergh, Howard Zinn. Anti-Guy says, unfortunately, Oliver Stone has been sympathetic with Trump lately, too. Right. There are always such people. The P guy says, oh, not the zombie project, a fantasy work centered around one protagonist, like his life. Go for it. Absolutely go for it. And include me. Feel free to email me and we can talk about it. I have taught writing a lot more than Brandon Sanderson has. I'm not worth $10 billion. But MANE says the Napoleon movie made me want to reread War and Peace, so at least it did something good. Tolstoy 111 says Paculus films were so dramatically limp. The parallax view, Sophie's choice. Sid says, good night, Steve. I'm going to curl up in bed with accidentally in love now. That's a good one. That was a good one. Nietzsche Week says, Javier, I mean, okay, all right. We're doing film stuff. Colombian Thunder says, thoughts on Tom Wolfe's The Right Stuff. Personally love the film. I like bits of it. I like it when LBJ is shaking the whole limousine. He's so angry. Matt Sheridan says, Joaquin Phoenix looked drunk in the Napoleon film. Gandhi says, the Napoleon movie with Joaquin Phoenix was laughable. It was ridiculous. Just ridiculous. The P guy says, all right, what would you like me to email you about? I'm currently laying out the outline. Whatever you want to talk about writing, I am there to talk about writing. Nietzsche and Wink says, the Palin SNL parody was dead accurate. It's scary. Anti-Guy says, so the chainsaw guy didn't become president of Argentina. Aaron Hook says, how many people were you who were portrayed in All the President's Men did you know, Steve? Or should I ask which ones you didn't know? I don't know where that question came from. The people portrayed in All the President's Men, I knew 3. Matt Sheridan, I must go for tonight. Jeffrey Chaucer is calling my name. Nietzsche and Wig says, I refuse to watch the Napoleon film. And J. Scott Phillips says, who is the best on-screen Nixon? Oh, Dan Hedaya in Dick. Hands down, the best on-screen Nixon. Oh my God. He is so incredible. Oh my God. He is so amazing. All the way to the end. That epic ending sequence that I put every guest through. I put every guest through the end of that movie, or the end of Dick. So, oh my God, Dan Hedaya's face when his Nixon reads the sign that the 2 girls unfold. It's just perfect. Anyway, I do have to wrap this up. Sorry. The P guy wants to know what your email is. Well, my email is on every video. I don't want to say it out with the algorithm listening, but it's on every video. It's Gmail, so you can easily find it. Best Nixon was Philip Baker Hall. Oh no, it's Dan Hedaya, hands down. But anyway, I have to wrap this up. Sorry, this has been so much fun. Over 100 people for over 2 hours. That is just great. But I do have to wrap this up. We will do this again tomorrow, although I suspect there's going to be a disruption in live streams this weekend. We'll see. But tomorrow we can certainly do a shorter live stream. But anyway, I'm going to end this for now. Thank you all for being here. This is so much fun. I take so much crap from you people, and I love it. It's just wonderful. And you answered a lot of my questions about Booktube, so that's great. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up and get to work doing other things. But I'll be back tomorrow. You'll get 5 videos and a Stevestream. Good Lord. So anyway, thank you all. I'll see you soon. Oh, how are you doing?